Hey guys! This is part 10 of What If Naruto was one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 46 The Great March. Standing upon the edge of the highest peak in Kumogakure, Nagato Uzumaki and every Spartan around him lived a moment they had only imagined in their dreams. Victory over a foe that had destroyed their lives, and nothing was a better proof of that than their presence in their enemy's homeland. After routing Iwa's reinforcements in a surprise counterattack, they were quite alarmed when Madara had ordered them to rush towards Kumogakure. The Uchiha had told them that this was not something they could afford to miss, and he was right. "It doesn't feel real," whispered Hate in disbelief. "I wouldn't have believed it if I had not witnessed this with my own eyes," agreed Kasumi in a rare smile. "The captain and Ghost really did it," said Matsuri with a content expression upon her face. Kushina had been standing at a distance with tears freely falling from her eyes as she watched her dream come true, and for her comrades to witness it as well. All the pain and hardship she had endured for the past decade hadn't gone in vain as she witnessed the joy of her dead friends. Many of her comrades were staring at her with an increased respect, and made her cry even harder when they raised their fists to thump it against their chests proudly. "The Spartan salute. For you, we give our heart." She returned the salute wholeheartedly, even as she broke down with heavy sobs of joy and sadness overwhelming her heart, which made her comrades arrive at her side. Even after all these years, even if she was far older than them in age now, even after everything that had happened in their miserable lives. "Thank you, Kushina. You fought for our sake even when our own country betrayed us, even giving up on a life of peace to avenge our deaths," said Nagato gratefully, earning firm nods from every Spartan surrounding her in a protective circle. "It was your brother who never forgot even one of us. He went through hell for us and gave me a reason to live again when I was consumed by revenge. He is the real reason why we came this far," whispered Kushina sincerely. "Guess we were all just crazy children who joined the special forces to make our lives miserable, yet we formed a bond that nations, this shinobi system, and even the unstoppable march of time was not able to weaken," said Hate with a faint smile. "This bond was all we ever had against this cruel world. Many of us were orphans who never really had family to begin with. We were drafted to fight for our nation when we didn't even understand the world fully," said Matsuri sadly. "It's not over until we make the Mizukage pay for his crimes and for our people to know the real truth," warned Kasumi seriously. Silence settled over the entire group as the implications of that action became even more clear. "Kushina, despite everything that has happened, we died for Yuzu. Our Kage disrespected that sacrifice and tarnished our memories by lying to our people about what happened and making our captain a scapegoat for his own devious orders. For us to get honor in death and to give solace as well as financial support to the ones among us with families, our captain vilified his own legacy and future. For that alone, we will fight against this entire shinobi world for him. Promise," Kasumi fiercely, "and we will march with you to Yuzu in order to make the Mizukage answer for his crimes and restore our captain's honor in the eyes of our people. But we will not kill our own clansmen in the pursuit of that objective, nor will we allow you to take such action no matter what reason. Family, duty, honor, our clan's words still mean much to us," warned Hate. "The only Uzumaki that shall die if required will be the Mizukage. Nobody else," pointed Matsuri seriously. Kushina listened to their concerns, and even as she assured them that neither she or their captain had any such plans, she could not help but respect them even more for standing up for the right thing, even when they were betrayed in life. "The captain and I have a plan to lure out the Mizukage alone with a small guard only. But that won't be put into action until we completely crush Kumogakure's last fighting force," said Kushina frankly. "Wish I could be a part of that battle," replied Kasumi longingly. "It's best if we keep your presence a secret from the Kirigakure army," advised Kushina with a straight face, making her old friend huff in protest. "Doesn't mean we can't observe from afar. Maybe step in if things get dire, which I am hoping won't be the case," suggested Nagato. Kushina sighed when many others also voiced similar opinions, and considering that she could not stop any of them from doing what they wanted, she could only relent and allow their request. More than that, they had earned the right to watch Kumogakure's final destruction. A day later, 20 kilometers from Kumogakure, Nagato alongside the entire Spartan company had secretly taken up positions across a barren hill overlooking the vast open battlefield that was about to serve as the conflict zone between Kirigakure forces and Kumogakure's last army. The natives were led by the son of the deceased third Raikage. He had a 5,000-strong force made up of veterans, and the Kinkaku Black Ops in his ranks. They were considered to be some of the most fiercest and loyal warriors, which showed as they marched fearlessly towards their enemies despite the threat of complete annihilation. On the other side was the Kirigakure army. Nagato smiled when he found his elder brother at the head of that army, unlike A, who was commanding his force from his own center. The Kirigakure army had 6,000 men in its ranks after having left behind more than 1,000 to continue occupying Kumogakure, and the losses they suffered while taking the village. They still had 1,000 more men than their enemy on this battlefield. But the thing that strengthened their faction was the presence of the infamous 501st floating over their army. The captain made our duplicates. Wonder how they shall fare against us, said Kasumi curiously. They are good, but we invented airborne warfare. We'll still kick their asses, commented Hate confidently, earning a smirk from his redhead female friend. Well, if they get their asses kicked, we'll have to step in and save them, joked Nagato. I doubt that. Look, pointed Matsuri. A's army, Ginkaku, take the Kinkaku Black Ops and lead the right flank. Arima, you'll lead our center. Mayuri, you'll lead the left flank. A was about to give his next set of orders when one of his officers trembled beside him, which made him look at the man. Get it together, Kane. I need every man ready to fight and die for this battle if need be. Anything less than all hope for our people is lost, reminded A furiously, and frowned when the despair across the dark-skinned man's face deepened further. It's not going to be battle, Lord A. The third Raikage son was confused upon hearing those disheartened words and looked in the direction his officer had been staring at and was left speechless himself. Mei Terumi the Six-Tails Jinchuriki marched to the center of her army and took up a position beside her Mizukage. At the same time, the Kirigakure forces dragged 2 of the captured Kumogakure Jinchuriki, the 2 and 8 tails, to their left and right flank to be used against their own brethren. Fukai and Yujito, no, whispered A in despair. He watched a female redhead and another clone of hers forcing the 2 captured Kumo Jinchuriki to unleash their bestial powers with the help of the chakra chains from her body that linked her directly to their chakra network. His eyes widened in horror as he understood the real intention of his enemy and turned towards his last and only hope. Ginkaku, the new leader of the Kinkaku Black Ops, saw an old foe in the form of the blonde Mizukage looking directly at him. He swiftly ordered his special forces to charge towards the enemy lines and started his own transformation by calling forth the bestial 9 tails chakra within his own body. Following their lead, the last Kumogakure army charged alongside A. How pitiful! Mei looked at the 4th Mizukage as he said those words upon witnessing the enemy's desperate charge towards their lines. She was even more surprised when she saw Naruto clenching his fists painfully and anger clearly present in his eyes. To make the same mistakes again and again, to continue fighting even when doing so only causes more pain and misery, whispered Naruto sadly. You were right, Madara. Humanity has never truly united for itself, always so short-sighted and petty even in the face of annihilation. They'll kill themselves in this world even if the Otsutsuki never attack us. But I truly didn't want this to be the case. I wanted to believe in them more than anything else. Yet they'll never understand, thought Naruto regretfully. The fact that A had laughed at the Mizukage's offer for surrender that he had sent via one of the Zetsu, and even killed the messenger in retribution, only added to the young Kage's despair. More than enough blood had already been shed, including those of young enemy children who died in a valiant yet doomed effort to save Kumogakure, refusing to accept the offer of surrender extended by the victorious Kirigakure army, which increased his hatred for this shinobi system that indoctrinated young children across nations to die needlessly. Just as it was with the Spartans, a part of his heart accepted that maybe the plan he and Madara wanted to implement was too extreme. Ino certainly seemed to believe that to be the case. It was why he was not afraid for his own future. If he was wrong and his solution for peace was flawed, then mankind would find a way to stop him and win back their future. Whatever it was would be up to them. If they couldn't even achieve that, if they couldn't even defeat him, one of their own, then mankind had no hope of ever finding peace or facing the Otsutsuki or any other forces of this universe. To save mankind from its own evils and regain all that was lost, he had to become their devil himself. The Mizukage raised his hand, making Kushina and her clone currently controlling the 2 Kumogakure Jinchuriki to unleash their full power. Today we shall put an end to Kumogakure's history, said Naruto with a chilling calmness, and looked at Mei with a gaze devoid of any hesitation or regrets. She nodded hesitantly, and called forth her own Biju chakra as the other 2 captured Jinchuriki were forced to do the same by Kushina until 3-tailed beast bombs were being pointed at the charging enemy army. Mangetsu. Haku, the 7 ninja swordsmen pair alongside the 501st floating above their army, now aimed their kunai launchers straight towards the approaching enemies. Fire! There was a sharp crack in the wind as hundreds of 3-pronged kunai were unleashed by the 501st and the 7 ninja swordsmen pair from their kunai launchers, which flew towards the approaching enemy army. The consequences that followed would shake the foundation of the ninja world forever. Nagato and the Spartans watched the rain of 3-pronged kunai fly towards the charging Kumogakure army. Ginkaku even transformed into a mini nine-tailed fox and obliterated a huge chunk of the projectiles while launching a tailed beast bomb of his own towards the Mizukage and his forces. But it was too late. The Mizukage teleported the three-tailed beast bombs made by the Jinchurikis under his command right at his enemies with the help of the reigning three-pronged kunai. Kami, whispered Matsuri in horror. The land trembled as multiple tailed beast bombs exploded, taking out hundreds upon hundreds of Kumogakure forces in the blink of an eye. Himself being one of the first to perish when one of the bombs exploded right above his position before he could even blink. Even the tailed beast bomb launched by Ginkaku was teleported right back at the man, which engulfed him in a merciless explosion. The full power of Jinchurikis and their tailed beasts was never experienced by the shinobi world at such a scale. Even the veteran Spartans paled upon witnessing the scale of destruction and massacre, as more and more tailed beast bombs were rained down upon the remaining enemy forces until 5,000 shinobi were destroyed at an atomic level in a rain of hellfire that scorched not just the land forever, but also the living and the dead across all factions. A frightening silence engulfed the battlefield as the battle came to an anticlimactic but chilling end. The Kirigakure army itself remained rooted in its spot as their Kage walked forward towards the sole survivor among the enemy ranks. The man's tailed beast form had vanished, and so had the lower half of his body as he tried to crawl away when the Mizukage approached towards him. The war. It's really, said Hate in a trembling voice. Nagato could perfectly understand his friend's feelings as they witnessed the end of a war that had dominated their entire lives and led to their death. Today, they watched the fall of a nation that had terrorized their own for decades and saw their leader reach the last remaining fighter of Kumogakure. Mangetsu and Haku had been veterans of several battles. They were used to braving against terrifying odds and stealing victories at painful costs. They had watched humans wreaking carnage upon fellow humans many times during this conflict. But this was not war. What they had watched was no battle but annihilation of an entire army in a few passing moments. The devastating power of the Jinchurikis along with their tailed beasts was a reality the entire shinobi world was aware of. However, not once had it been used so precisely that it led to the destruction of an entire army before it could even fight. They watched the reason for that reality walking towards the last unfortunate survivor of the Kumogakure army. Naruto Namikaze, you, truly, are, whispered Mangetsu nervously. Haku remained silent but wholeheartedly understood her friend's feeling as they watched the determination, brilliance, and sheer power of the fourth Mizukage destroying the most powerful military in the world. Ginkaku. The said man stopped his crawling and barely managed to look back to see the fourth Mizukage standing over him, the blond man's familiar cold eyes glancing at him without mercy. Demon, if only we had killed you that day, coughed Ginkaku painfully. Truly pathetic. Your mistake and that of your entire nation was in starting a war which you could never win. Your sheer greed and ambition led to your downfall. You had the strength and power to rule, but not the wisdom to govern and prosper, chastised Naruto disappointedly. And you will be any different? Don't mock me, retorted the older man even as he dissolved into a painful fit of coughs. I will. And when you do meet your brother Kinkaku, your Raikage, Lord A, your own men alongside every one of your deceased comrades, tell them that their memory and legacy shall disappear from this world, announced Naruto mercilessly. Ginkaku felt unrivaled rage swell within him upon that insult, and the names of all the people this bastard had killed, Ginkaku's dear brother being one of them. But before he could retort, "What?" the dying Kumogakure shinobi was shocked when he was swarmed by a familiar ash-like chakra that covered his remaining body completely, with only his eyes kept free to see the man who destroyed his world looking at him with a satisfied smile. The Spartans of Uzushigakure wish you an eternity in hell. Ginkaku screamed when the chakra swarming around him ignited and set him on fire. As the flames burned his flesh and melted his bones, he couldn't help but scream in agony while being forced to look at the man who had reduced him to this state. Kill me. A cold smile was his answer, along with the flames burning him becoming even more hotter. As his last moments were consumed in absolute agony, Ginkaku lamented it all. If only they had not tried to conquer Uzushigakure, they wouldn't have unleashed this monster upon their own nation. No. As his eyes closed forever and his last vision was that of Naruto Namikaze looking at him with his cold and merciless red eyes, Ginkaku came to an even more devastating realization. They had unleashed a devil over the shinobi world. Kumogakure. Few days later, Mei Terumi grunted in exhaustion as she finished her climb and found her target sitting alone and in silence at the edge of the highest mountain in the Cloud Village. You really should stop making ladies climb mountains to meet you. It's usually the other way around, you know, she teased with a smile, making him look back at her with a subdued smile which caught her off guard. Sorry, it's peaceful in places like these, and beautiful. Mei could not deny that sentiment, as it was truly a breathtaking sight, with clouds literally passing around them even as their entire army celebrated their complete victory hundreds of feet down on the ground. "I thought you might be celebrating," she prompted, as she took a seat by his side. "There is still much left to accomplish." "The men, however, could use some enjoyment after all that's happened," countered Naruto, making her chuckle. "Says the man who conquered one of the 5 great nations and now rules over 2 such territories." "Is it not enough?" she asked curiously, earning a wry smile. "Ever since I was a child, I always wanted to go to the lands across the west. I wanted a world not embroiled in constant war, so there was time to explore." "I still yearn for that dream," whispered Naruto. "The West has a way of swallowing men in their dreams." His eyes widened in surprise upon hearing that from her, and the intense stare within her eyes saw right through him. "But you won't stop here, will you?" asked Mei knowingly. "I am fighting for something bigger. Many say such a thing is impossible. But each land, each boundary that I cross, I strip away another such illusion. We can connect this world for a peaceful future, Mei. To free the people of the world from this failed system. Such would be beyond the glory of conquests, a dream shared by the sage of 6 paths himself, who was a friend to mankind and wanted us to be better than what we are today." Mei remained silent even as she tried to grasp the revolution within his heart, and one which he wanted to spread across the world. Even a few months ago, she would have told him such a dream was impossible. But then she had fought alongside him in this campaign, watched him lead as a true Kage should. She didn't know whether it was the right path or not, or even whether they could actually accomplish such a thing, but looking at him gave her hope. There was something about him that made her want to believe that he could truly bring about a real change in this world. Maybe he already had, and she was just too caught up in the current to see it just yet. But there is another dream that is more dear to my heart. One which I have lost time and again, family. She looked back at him upon hearing those words and saw a faint smile upon his lips. Her eyes widened in shock as she remembered her own father's words from long ago. For a man who has everything, he does not have the most important thing of all, family. "I am trying to say," he hesitated, and was surprised when she gently grasped his hand. "I know," she whispered with a faint smile, and blushed when he gave her a warm smile in return. Mei was elated even more when he got up from his seat and knelt on one knee before her. There was a faint blush upon his face as he grabbed a ring from his pocket which cleared any doubts about his intention, not that she had any to begin with. Naruto looked at the younger woman and was about to hesitate in his next action until he remembered that Ino wanted him to be happy. He truly liked Mei and felt that they could become more if given a chance. More importantly, the Terumi clan was the most powerful family after the Hozuki clan. If any of his men ever tried to rebel, which was a clear possibility now that some of the 7 ninja swordsmen suspected his past, he would need their support along with the powers that Mei possessed, which had proven extremely crucial. This war had also proved to him how fragile his own future could be if he continued with his plan. As the last survivor of the Namake's clan, it was his duty to leave behind heirs that would ensure its survival. He owed it to his mother and their clan's ancestors. The fact that he also wanted to be a father and do better than what happened to his firstborn child was also an important factor. Even Kushina had encouraged him to go ahead and solidify his rule over his new nation with the help of this marriage, while their own relationship, considering she wanted to go back to Yuzu after they dealt with the Mizukage, and his own intention of making her the second Mizukage, the chances of them staying together in the long run were bleak. There's no going back now. I must keep moving forward. Mei Terumi, you have always stood by me ever since we became friends. You have appreciated my strengths and covered my weaknesses. I like you a lot, and want us to be more, knowing that I can trust you completely. Will you marry me? He asked sincerely, and saw few tears had arrived in her eyes as she got up on her feet. That was barely romantic and Spartan than I imagined. The place you chose was a nice touch though, she commented wryly with an amused smile. She saw him flinch a little and scratch the back of his head in an embarrassed manner. I'm really not good at this. I'm sorry, I should have came up with something better, he apologized honestly. No, it's fine. I know you are a warrior at heart, and this marriage was politically proposed by my own father. As Mizukage, you could have simply accepted or rejected it via a formal message. The fact that you are making this effort, clumsy as it is, shows it means something to you apart from the obvious benefits, and you are willing to work for it, said Mei with a smirk. The blush across his cheeks became darker when she gave him a suggestive look. I accept your marriage proposal on the condition that the wedding ceremony would be better, replied Mei amusedly, as she allowed him to place the ring upon her finger. I think the Mizukage can arrange for a grand ceremony, he agreed with a smile. He better. Naruto chuckled and was pleased to be happy in this brief moment. He knew there were challenges and serious threats ahead, The future was uncertain, but for now he was content to go forward and kiss his future wife, a gesture which she returned wholeheartedly, and with equal passion. Land of Earth, 1 year later. The land of wind has fallen. The second Mizukage of the rock displayed no outward emotion in the midst of his advisory council as the nervous messenger relayed the catastrophic news. The same could not be said for his top commanders, advisors, and even his own student Anoki, now missing an eye thanks to his failed effort of saving the land of lightning, which had fallen in the same manner, albeit in a bigger bloodbath. Now another key ally had fallen. The third Hokage has sent a request to enter into a peace treaty, the messenger shouted over the chaotic and heated arguments of the council. For the first time, Mu raised his hand, silencing everyone else, and looked directly at the messenger, who nodded firmly. "Thank you," he replied calmly, earning a bow from the young ninja before he exited the room. Why would Konoha sue for peace so soon after winning such a major victory? "It doesn't make sense," asked one of the Iwagakure commanders. "It makes perfect sense." The third Hokage, or should I say Tobirama Senju, now leading their war effort, knows the heavy losses his nation has suffered in this victory. Their army had already taken devastating casualties while fighting a three-front war against Kumogakure, Sunagakure, and our assault. This offensive against Sunagakure, while leading to their victory, has also exhausted their war machine. "They can't advance towards us, which is why we must strike them with our entire might and liberate our fallen ally," said Ohanki boisterously. The young shinobi and possible future Mizukage received a chorus of approvals from every commander and advisor in the room, all except for his own teacher and current village leader. "Lord Mu," he said respectfully, earning a sharp look from the Mizukage, "you're all fools. If it was just Konoha we were facing, I would have backed this plan. Or have you forgotten our situation on our other front?" asked Mu coldly. He was satisfied when nearly everyone in the room blanched when one of the support staff updated the advance of an underestimated enemy even further. "The Hidden Frost and Hidden Hot Water Village have surrendered to Kirigakure armies. Those barbarians are advancing west right towards us with only the Hidden Waterfall left as a buffer in between. Thousands of shinobi and feudal warriors have flocked their ranks after forsaking their daimyos when the fourth Mizukage butchered them. He now has 40,000 troops under his command after his latest conquest," said Mu bitterly. "If we combine all the men provided by our daimyo with our shinobi, we have more than 60,000 men in our ranks. We can face him, Lord Mu," said one of the old advisors. "We crushed Kirigakure and their 7 ninja swordsmen before. We can do it again. The unity of stone can never be challenged." Mu could not believe the sheer stupidity his people were willing to make in their blind nationalism and absolute belief in their military and economic power. He had been the same at the start of this war, as had been his allies Kumogakure and Sunagakure. Now they were both gone. While the land of wind had been conquered, its leadership, feudal and shinobi alike, had not suffered too greatly. The Kage died in battle while defending his village, and the wind daimyo had been executed, but their families and supporters were spared by a merciful Konoha leadership and its Hokage. The same had not been the situation on the other front. Entire feudal dynasties from the land of water and lightning, land of frost and land of hot water had been executed till their youngest family members by Kirigakure. Their shinobi villages not strong enough to stop the Mizukage and his victorious armies, now having 4 Jinchuriki in their ranks. To his credit, the young Kage had been merciful and more than generous in his treatment of civilians, non-combatants and any fighters who surrendered. But he had completely butchered Kumogakure's military, so much so that many historians were now calling it in mass cleansing. Such a man could never be allowed to ever set foot in the land of Earth. The third Hokage is a statesman, as is his predecessor. They are well versed with the reality of this world and want to preserve the status quo, as will the fire daimyo. "I think this peace proposal has his signature behind it. Even our daimyo had a feeling this would happen sooner or later," said Mu straightforwardly, stopping the jingoism of his commanders rather abruptly. "Our feudal lord?" Mu sighed tiredly but did explain as to what exactly had been happening in the most important front as per the reports they had been receiving. "The fourth Mizukage is a conqueror. He is coming for everything. His armies have already reached the borders of the land of waterfalls. And as much as I have faith in our military might and national unity, I will not allow such a dangerous man to reach anywhere near our lands. He has never lost a single battle, killed the third Raikage in single combat, executed multiple feudal dynasties completely, crushed a civil war in his own homeland, defeated one of the 5 great nations and amassed several smaller nations to now rule over nearly 40% of our world. He single-handedly murdered the Raikage's son and 5,000 veteran shinobi." Anoki, alongside all the commanders and advisors, had never once seen the second Mizukage lose his composure during the entire course of the war. It was why they were quite intimidated when Lord Mu explained all of that in a voice so chilling and his killing intent clear enough for everyone to feel wary of and back away from. Our daimyo's intention is clear, as is that of the one ruling the land of fire. We must stop that man before he changes the status quo of this world forever, warned Mu. Konoha and Kirigakure are allies. Even if we sign a peace treaty, will it really stop Kirigakure? Asked Anoki seriously. For now. Kirigakure is more powerful than ever. It has become a giant which we cannot ignore, like a backwater colony of the past. But its armies are exhausted from their campaigns and its supply lines are getting stretched. If their ally sues for peace and we agree, then the Mizukage will have to agree, in part due to his current situation and for the fact that by being too greedy he risks going up against two great nations wanting peace. He is strong, but not enough to take on such a power just yet, said Mu seriously. He will be in time. Mu nodded at Anoki's foreboding warning and was satisfied, as most of his commanders and advisors had mellowed down considerably after their recent education on the reality of the war situation. The second Mizukage walked towards the shinobi world map, where he looked at the picture of the fourth Mizukage placed upon the vast territory he had conquered. The existence of our world order is at stake, everyone. Naruto the Great. People are already believing in this legend. Most of it may be hubris, but just look at how much he has conquered. Anoki glared in anger and envy at the same time when he saw the sheer area that the fourth Mizukage had conquered. His nation now started from the land of water, stretched across the seas to the land of lightning, went further into the jungles of the land of frost, and the mountains of the land of hot water. He ruled over not just 40% of the world, but almost equal population, resources, and economic power. His veteran army was growing larger and stronger, its warriors having absolute faith in their undefeated Kage. If we don't take the peace deal, then we will be in a two-front war, with Konoha approaching us from the south and the fourth Mizukage from the east. Even if we manage to repel them, our nation will be devastated and ruined for generations. More than that, we need to accept this reality and make new alliances against the threat we all face, said Mu frankly. We can't afford a two-front war, agreed Anoki reluctantly. Have our diplomatic envoys engage the land of fire in negotiations immediately. Anoki, you will lead these talks. The very first condition for our engagement will be a ceasefire on all fronts, instructed Mu seriously. Do you really think Konoha can make Kirigakure stand down so quickly? Asked Anoki hesitantly. They have no choice. Otherwise, the full might of Iwagakure will descend upon them. It'll take a few weeks for the Mizukage to reach our borders. Before that happens, we will crush the land of fire's remaining forces so brutally that their hold over the land of wind will be untenable. Tell the Hokage, I guarantee that. Anoki flinched but nodded at his Kage's orders even as Mu turned back towards the map of the shinobi world. If this works, the second great ninja war is finished, whispered Mu disappointedly, as things had not at all gone in their favor. 2 of the 5 great nations had fallen, leading to the birth of 2 new superpowers threatening Iwa's existence. Thousands upon thousands had died across the world. The world economy was badly damaged. Even the status quo had been altered so severely that it threatened the entire shinobi world itself. Most importantly, Mu's eternal rival Genjutsu Hozuki had cursed the shinobi world. The second Mizukage had been executed by the Water Daimyo, which started a civil war that not only led to the execution of that entire feudal dynasty by Miss Shinobi, but now those very same warriors were creating a new world by destroying every feudal dynasty across the world and conquering nations. The crazy bastards had even given this conquest a name, the Great March. Hozuki, what kind of monster have you unleashed upon us all? Even in death, you still are leaving behind great problems for me to deal with. But he had a feeling the next one would be on the horizon soon enough and would be more devastating if they failed to contain the fourth Mizukage quickly. For the future of the shinobi world order and feudal dynasty rule, that man had to be dealt with permanently. And Mu intended to see to that task, no matter the cost or consequences. Damn you, Naruto Namikaze. 1 week later, near Land of Waterfall border, Kirigakure army camp. You weren't kidding, great uncle. This is... Tobarama Senju could understand Tsunade's astonishment upon seeing the sheer number of fighters residing inside the massive Kiri army camp. His niece seemed a little intimidated, but he knew it was necessary for her to understand the different powers that now existed across the world. With Nawaki dying heroically in the conquest of Sunagakure, and his elder brother's children having already died in earlier conflicts, it made Tsunade his grandniece the only possible leader to the Senju clan after him. No, there is another more deserving. He stopped those treacherous thoughts from gripping his heart, as they were nothing more than a mere fantasy. Does my uncle really command such a massive army? Whispered Tsunade, barely audible enough for Tobarama to hear, and not their guard that had accompanied them here and were currently staying at a little distance from the twin Senjus due to Tobarama's instruction. He had told the girl about the real identity of his secret son. She hadn't believed him at first, but when Mito, her grandmother, had vouched for the same, Tsunade had been left speechless for a few moments before she had suggested Naruto to be named as the rightful leader of the Senju clan after Tobarama. He had the lineage, was more powerful than anyone else including Tobarama among the Senju clan, and the only suitable adult male left after two great ninja wars who had the ability to lead. Nawaki could have been one in time, but his unfortunate death and Suna's fall had placed their clan in a precarious situation. As such, it left Tobarama with Tsunade, and if she was to lead their clan, then she had to know about everything, including its dark secrets. The existence of a Senju descendant who was now the fourth Mizukage being one among them. He is exceptional and brilliant in war and leadership. Which is why we must ask him to stop for the sake of the shinobi world, said Tobarama frankly. The Hokage and his advisors should have been here to lead these talks in person, said Tsunade with a heavy frown. Hiruzen doesn't have a good relationship with Naruto because of reasons you already know. The less said about Danzo and the others, the better. The Senju clan is the only one who can even have a chance of getting an audience from him, explained Tobarama honestly. What they did to Uncle was a mistake. One which has costed us dearly, said Tsunade hesitantly. I know Tsunade better than most. Tsunade lowered her head for making a statement like that, for no one had lost more than her great-uncle due to the mistakes made by the third Hokage and his advisors. I haven't seen my son in a long time, wasn't even invited to his second marriage. I don't know how much he has changed, but I believe he is a fundamentally good man. Still, we must be prepared to protect the interest of our nation above family, advised Tobarama seriously. He was surprised when Tsunade shook her head and looked him in the eye. Estranged as he is, Naruto is still our family. How can we call ourselves the clan whose power is based on love and compassion when we have alienated one of our own so badly? Rather than threatening, we should listen to his thoughts and try to strike a balance between his and our needs, she countered strongly. Tsunade, I can be reasonable, protested Tobarama. I know, but please trust me on this. Tobarama looked at his grandniece, and the determination in her eyes which made him smile. If she proved herself well here, then he would be relieved knowing the future of the Senju clan and their nation was in safe hands. Maybe even see a future Hokage in making. Before he could ask their guard to form up and approach the Kirigakure camp, he felt an old but familiar presence behind them. It's been a long time, Lord Tobarama. Chapter 47, My War. Tobarama Senju alongside his niece and the rest of his guard had not expected to meet Kisame Hashigaki, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, as their escort before they even reached the Kirigakure army camp. The infamous warrior had greeted them curtly and escorted them respectfully to what was now a full-blown military function being conducted by their allies. I have a feeling they planned this demonstration instead of us springing up in the middle of it, said Shursui Uchiha, the young leader of his clan. The boy had proven himself a capable warrior and a fine leader after the death of his father Kagami in battle, one of Tobarama's prized students. Tobarama agreed with the Uchiho's suggestion, as their entire entourage was now seated upon a large stage built to observe the entire ceremony, and even joined by all the 7 ninja swordsmen who seemed proud and eager for the ceremony. The former Hokage could understand their feelings, considering it would be their men participating in this ceremony, and their performance would reflect upon their general's conduct as well. He smiled when he saw Tsunade was quite excited for a change when the war drums started beating and the ground started shaking a little at first before it transformed into a sizable tremor. In the past 1 year, Kirigakure had not just conquered nations and increased its power significantly but also brought more improvements and changes to their military structure. It was evident when the First Legion under the command of General Mangetsu Hozuki began the flag march. The Hozuki clan head looked extremely proud when the finest representatives from his 10,000-strong army roared a mighty war cry before pointing their swords respectfully towards their leader and the other dignitaries. They were considered to be the finest fighters of their nation, always serving as the vanguard in every campaign. Following them was the Second Legion under the leadership of General Amuri Ringo. The female swordsman grinned victoriously when the representatives of her 8,000-strong force fired off a sea of lightning bolts from their swords, making the very skies rumble tremendously. The Third Legion under the leadership of General Kisame Hashigaki were unique as their leader. Tobarama's eyes widened in surprise when he saw the small group representing the 8,000-strong force marching in discipline upon a tidal wave of water that they also controlled. It was a bizarre sight, but one which also displayed the sheer control these ninjas had over the water element, a feat which truly earned them the former Hokage's respect. The 4th and 5th Legion were under the command of General Hakuyuki and General Jinpachi Miyanashi, both having 8,000 warriors each and respectable fighting forces to be wary of. Each legion is an army on its own, commented Shursui warily. Tobarama agreed with that accurate assessment from the Uchiha leader, as he had seen a complete contingent in every legion. Scouts and sensors, battle ninjas, medics, sealing experts, communications specialists, airborne special forces, engineers, logistics and support units. Lord Fourth call it's the core system, said Mangetsu proudly, upon seeing the Konoha delegation's curiosity. Is your navy a part of it? Asked Tsunade excitedly. No, they are an independent force led by Admiral Zabuza Momoichi. We rule the seas with their help. Tobarama gestured his grandniece to maintain her silence instead of answering upon that remark, nor did he miss the slight tightening of Zabuza's fists even as the man kept a stony silence. So, there are cracks no matter how small. Impressive. Although I wonder if your men are not exhausted from the constant campaigns. Haven't they not seen their homes in nearly 2 years? He asked carefully. We march for as long and far as our Mizukage desires, answered Mangetsu curtly. But Tobarama smiled when he saw the boy's clenched fists, indicating that his remark had some truth which the Kiri leaders found hard to digest. They were interrupted when the troops of all the legions saluted towards the north as the former Hokage felt a powerful presence arrive inside the camp. His eyes widened when he saw the person to be none other than his own son, the fourth Mizukage. What is this? Tobarama was left speechless and rattled when he caught a good look of the man who had taken the ninja world by storm. The last time he had seen him, he had been a young man in his eyes, full of youth, idealism and patriotism. Now there was a veteran Kage before him, one born and shaped by the horrors of the ninja world. He was in an even fitter physical form than earlier. He had allowed his hair to grow slightly longer, and his cheekbones were more defined. What was most surprising was the thin but well-maintained goatee that gave him a more mature appearance. His eyes, the same as his mother's, looked at the legions saluting him and their allies in an equally cold and calculating manner. But what was most disturbing was his chakra. There had always been a hint of malice in his powers, most probably due to the dark power he inherited from his younger step-brother before he died. But now his entire chakra felt like a cold and merciless power threatening to consume anything that got in its way. But there was a more disturbing presence that rankled Tobarama terribly. He was not surprised when the Mizukage looked at him and offered just a single nod. Tobarama and Tsunade had multiple questions running through their minds when only the two of them alone were requested to have a private meeting with the Mizukage. They had voiced their concerns that they would be more comfortable having their own entourage alongside Kiri's top generals be present for this important meeting, but were only told that this would be a personal meeting followed by the official dialogue later with all the top leaders present. The guards outside the Mizukage's command tent allowed them to walk in freely, but what they saw inside left them completely speechless. Tobarama's lips trembled as he saw his son not sitting upon some high chair or appear intimidating. Instead, he found him beside a beautiful young woman, with the two of them holding a young infant in each of their arms. Welcome, Lord Tobarama. I wanted to introduce my family to you first before we begin any talks. If that's fine with you, said Naruto with a gentle and welcoming smile. Tobarama had to fight back fiercely to prevent his eyes from becoming moist at the sight before him. He had known his boy had married again with a woman named Mei Terumi the Six-Tails Jinchuriki more than a year ago, had even been disappointed when his son had not told or invited him for this important event. But this, he found himself walking forward towards the couple on his own and didn't even know as to how was Tsunade taking this revelation. As he reached his son, he looked at the infant in his arms, his grandson. There was a newborn boy looking at him curiously with his innocent green eyes that he inherited from his mother. His blonde hair and facial features were near identical to his father's, and the core of his chakra was strong. Arima Namikaze. Tobarama struggled with the lump in his throat upon hearing the child's name, even as the infant raised a curious fist towards him. He wanted so badly to touch his grandchild, to hold him in his arms, to really feel the next generation of his own lineage. But looking at Mei, he hesitated. She didn't know his real identity, and could not be allowed to know. Do you want to hold him? She asked kindly. Tobarama nodded gratefully, not wanting to figure out as to why she was so kind in allowing a stranger to hold her child. Maybe it had to be with the subtle but reassuring nod that she received from her husband, something which Tobarama didn't see in his current state. What's her name? Tobarama was so lost in his own happiness as Naruto allowed him to hold his grandson that he barely managed to hear an excited Tsunade ask about the infant in Mei's arms. Looking at her, he only then realized the children were actually twins, except the young female infant had faint auburn hair like her mother, and shared her facial features unlike her brother. But one look in her blue eyes was enough to prove just whose daughter she was. In no way, Namikaze, said Mei with a warm smile, earning a burp from the infant and a wide smile from Tsunade. Tobirama looked at his son with the unsaid question clearly present in his eyes, to which Naruto just gave a nod. In the end, it wasn't that surprising that his son ended up naming his granddaughter after his own mother, whom he loved dearly. A feeling which Tobirama himself shared. "You have done well for yourself," Naruto said, Tobirama honestly and with true happiness reflecting in his voice. More than his numerous conquests and other achievements, Tobirama was most proud of the family his son had managed to build even after everything he went through. Maybe they would be able to fill the hole in his heart, which even now Tobirama saw in his bittersweet smile. "Yes," was all Naruto said. "It's good to see you again, Lord Tobirama, and who is this young lady?" Questioned Mei sincerely. "You have grown taller and stronger since I last saw you," Tsunade Senju commented Naruto with a faint smile. Before the Senju clan head could answer that question, Mei curiously watched the young Senju teenager blush upon that praise even as she shook the Mizukage's offered hand shyly. "She's my grandniece and the future leader of my clan," answered Tobirama respectfully. Mei smiled widely and shook hands with the future Senju clan leader, much to Tsunade's delight. In all honesty, Tobirama found it quite hard to believe that this young woman was not just his daughter-in-law but also the second most powerful person in the new Kiri nation. While Naruto and his armies had continued their great march to conquer more and more nations, the responsibility of uniting this new superpower had fallen upon her shoulders, not just as the Mizukage's wife but according to some rumors as his chosen successor as well. Just like her husband was a great leader, she was one in her own right. Her very first act was to ban slavery practiced by many of Kiri's ninja clans since their village's founding. She even went a step further and abolished the entire feudal nobility prevalent not just in her own nation but across the vast territories her husband conquered. That instantly made her a hero in the eyes of their new subjects and common populace who had concerns about being abused by this new leadership just like the past. With the vast wealth and resources they had conquered, Mei Terumi actually formulated a wise strategy of stabilizing their large nation. Instead of the benefits being hoarded by the ninja clans in the past, she offered them a respectable portion for their loyalty. She also honored her husband's promise, and ensured the families of every deceased warrior from their army, irrespective of which territory they came from and who died in battle, never paid any taxes for the rest of their lives. She even repaid the debts accrued by the Kiri shinobi apart from giving them financial and honorary rewards that ensured their absolute devotion and loyalty not just to their Mizukage, but also to herself. But it was the civilians who benefited most from her leadership. With Naruto's blessing, she was free to govern their empire and make policies she found suitable for its development. She increased taxes greatly upon the richer sections and utilized the additional resources to make education and healthcare a basic right for every citizen across their nation. It was a historic decision and the first of its kind in the shinobi world. It was still in the process of being fully implemented and had its challenges, but the people were now truly hopeful for their future and that of their children. She was the one who persuaded her husband to dismantle hidden villages and their conquered territories completely. Not only were the powerful symbols of the past but also huge cost centers which consumed vast resources that were in the way of her welfare initiatives for the common citizens. Normally, such a move would have led to widespread riots and discontent, but the exhausted populace from the conquered territories wanted an end to the war. When they saw their shinobi would be no match for the ever-growing Kiri armies and its powerful Mizukage, they backed the move, and those fighters were absorbed by Naruto and their nation's standing legions. Mei used those freed-up resources to strengthen their nation's infrastructure by developing roads, ports, and waterways. She established a permanent channel of transportation between the Land of Water and its conquered territories on the main continent. She supported the farmers and was on track to make their nation fully self-reliant in food production in a few years. She formed regional and local governments whom the people could approach for their concerns and wishes and who in turn would report to her, and she would in turn keep the Mizukage apprised with the true situation of their citizens while he focused on security and international relations. "I have heard great things about you," Lady Mei said Tobirama respectfully. "Likewise, Lord Tobirama. I have heard great things about you from Naruto as well," replied Mei courteously. "Oh? Is that so?" he asked with a harmless smile, while glancing a peek at his son who was looking at his child instead of paying attention to the conversation happening around him. "Yes, you are a great shinobi. He respects you as a warrior and strategist. The way you defeated the Land of Wind was quite impressive," congratulated Mei. "I had help," answered Tobirama simply, earning an inquisitive look from the young woman. "Some of your battle strategies were so alike to Naruto's own. Pardon my forwardness, but in many ways you are quite similar to Naruto here." Tsunade paled a little upon hearing those words and looked at the Kiri matriarch warily. If only the woman knew how close to home her prediction had been and that she was surrounded by her husband's family at the very moment. The father and son merely glanced at each other upon that remark until Naruto smiled before handing over his son to his wife. I want to take a walk with them. Can you get the rest of their party and our comrades seated for the negotiations, please? Asked Naruto. Very well. Don't keep everyone waiting too long, warned Mei, earning a mocking bow from her husband before she went away with the children in her arms. Only when she was completely gone did the smile vanish from the Mizukage's lips as he looked at twin Senjus before him in his usual calculative manner. Judging from the way Tsunade has been staring at me, did you tell her the truth, Lord Tobirama? Asked Naruto seriously, making the young girl blush. Yes. The Mizukage sighed upon that straightforward but curt reply from the former Hokage even as he gestured them to accompany him for a walk. Mei's pregnancy was quite a well-kept secret. Tsunade listened attentively as Tobirama made the careful comment as they arrived outside the Kiri camp and took up position on a small hill nearby. I was not going to allow the past to repeat itself, answered Naruto coldly. Tobirama grimaced as he was reminded of the fate of his first daughter in Lino and his first grandchild. Considering their tragedy, it was no surprise that his son had gone to great lengths to not let the same tragedy happen again in any form. They are beautiful babies. Can't believe I have cousins so young, said Tsunade with a happy smile. Tobirama saw the icy demeanor of his son fade a little as he offered a genuine smile to his niece. Bringing her here might have turned out to be a good decision. They wouldn't mind some more family. And Tsunade, I am so sorry about Nawaki. Or maybe it had not been such a good idea, after all. He was a brave fool, even idealistic. I had asked him not to lead one of the teams in the vanguard that attacked Sunagakure. His dream was to be Hokage after all. But hearing of your battles and how even as Mizukage you still lead from the front made him want to be the same kind of leader. I don't regret his choice or his sacrifice. Please, do the same, said Tsunade frankly, even as she fought back her own grief over her brother's passing fiercely. He would have made a fine Hokage, so shall you in time. Tsunade was surprised upon that praise and looked up to see the fourth Mizukage staring at her with pride and respect in his eyes. It's always the warriors that pay the highest price while those in power, said Naruto, and stopped when he saw the way Tobirama shied away from that remark. Is that why you are always on the front lines? Asked Tsunade. I had a younger brother once too. Long ago during the First War, we made a vow to each other that we would never act like the despicable feudal dynasties or cowardly Kages who hide in their castles and villages while sending young children to die. That we would always lead from the front and seize our victories ourselves. I was ready to die for that brother no matter when, no matter where, but in the end the one who was sacrificed was him. I always relied so much on him, and in the end he even gave up his life for me and our nation. So yes, I understand your pain more than you can imagine, confessed Naruto honestly. It brought the young girl to tears, but in that grief, he also saw gratitude in her eyes for being able to understand how she felt. Then you agree we must end this war so that there are no more sacrifices like Nawaki, said Tobirama seriously. I'm not so sure about that. Both Senjus were quite surprised by the candid admission of the Mizukage as he glanced at the skies longingly. A Wagakure will never learn. With their backs to the wall, they want peace now on their terms. The moment they see that is not the case or things start going their way, they shall attack again. I will not allow that happen, said Naruto seriously. The land of Waterfall has aligned with them to protect their nation from your army that is camped at their doorstep. Together, they have 70,000 fighters and 3 Jinchuriki in their ranks. As much as I want to make them pay, Konoha does not have the strength left to face such a brutal conflict, admitted Tobirama. Numbers alone are not a reflection of military strength. Power, no matter its form, is only effective if wielded wisely and with accurate precision. You'll have to convince my generals about this peace that you want to make, said Naruto calmly. Still, there must be something that you want personally. Something which you can't openly reveal and is the reason why you brought us here alone, retorted Tobirama with a knowing look. Tsunade saw a faint smile arrive upon Naruto's lips as he looked towards the east with a longing gaze. Yuzu, whispered Tobirama hesitantly. I have conquered many things but have not yet achieved what is closest to my heart. It's still out there across the ocean, calling to me. Minato Namikaze's life revolved around it, as did the beginning of Naruto Namikaze. It can't end without it. To right the wrongs of the past and to hold a traitorous man accountable, I must keep going forward. I have to finish the story that Hanzo Uzumaki started, whispered Naruto solemnly. Yuzu is our oldest ally, the Uzumaki are our relatives. We can't allow you to attack them, denied Tobirama sadly. Despite everything that has happened, I was a shinobi of Yuzu. My family, friends and comrades died defending it. Minato Namikaze met a disgraceful end for its future and stability, hated by his own brethren. I may have taken freedom of many feudal dynasties and shinobi nations for my own dream, but I won't take away theirs no matter how much power I have. They shall remain free, said Naruto honestly. Tobirama relaxed a little upon hearing those reassuring words. He knew there were many things his son was hiding from him, the birth of his children being one such example itself, but in this he seemed sincere. Yuzu was extremely lucky, as was Konoha, for an attack on that island nation would have resulted into a war between them and Kirigakure. His son understood that, and despite everything that happened, a part of Naruto's heart loved the island he was born in, along with having a soft spot for the Uzumaki clan. Help me bring the Mizukage alone to justice and restore a part of what he stole from my Spartans. One man's fate to end the second great ninja war, that is my offer for peace. Tsunade had been silent till now, watching the father and son interact with each other. Knowing the full truth and hearing Naruto's feelings, she couldn't help but respect how much he had endured to reach to this point. I will have to take this up with the Fire Daimyo and the third Hokage. We can't take such a major action no matter how just without their consent and understanding of the consequences that shall follow, said Tobirama carefully. For a brief moment, Tsunade saw a flicker of true regret flash in the Mizukage's eyes upon hearing his father's guarded words. I understand. You must protect your nation and family. I must do the same. Tobirama watched his son starting to walk away with those parting words and was even more surprised when Tsunade ran after the retreating Mizukage. Uncle! Naruto stopped and turned back to see his niece looking at him earnestly. You're our family. She watched a lone tear fall from Naruto's eyes as he looked into her eyes, and his question made Tsunade freeze. How far are you willing to go to protect your family, Tsunade? What are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of peace? I know my answer. You must know yours. Naruto had been walking back towards the camp when he felt a familiar sensation across his left arm. Expanding his sensory powers, he felt a unique chakra at quite a distance that was calling out to him. Answering that request, he teleported himself to the other end to find Zetsu and Madara waiting for him, with the latter holding one of the Mizukage's famous three-pronged kunai in his dark hand. Why have you come here? Asked the fourth Mizukage seriously. He narrowed his gaze when he saw Madara Uchiha of all people looking more than concerned as he unfurled a scroll from his pouch and made a single hand sign unsealing its content. The Mizukage took several steps back upon seeing just what the Uchiha had brought for him to see. Do you still consider yourself to be the devil who wants to destroy the shinobi world and its corrupt system? Asked Zetsu seriously. He barely received a nod from the young Kage, whose gaze was fixed upon the revelation that his accomplices had brought for him to see. Too bad. Now you must be the leader who must unite the whole human race to face its greatest threat in history. All of us must rise above our differences and set aside old grievances no matter how much we hate it, advised Madara unhappily. Where did you find this? Asked Naruto hesitantly, for in front of him was a cold corpse of a strange-looking humanoid being with horns. He knelt to observe the body more closely, and saw the large hole where the heart should have been, the fatal injury that led to this being's demise. He sensed for the remnants of its power, and found its chakra signature to be unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was not similar to any human, or even any animal of this world. This was a scout that came searching for the Geto statue under my possession. There will be more coming soon if they are not already here, warned Madara, and for once seemed truly concerned of this development. I thought we'd have more time. Decades at least, whispered Naruto. Guess we were just unlucky. Scouts are not too far ahead of the main army usually, but you would know that, Lord Fourth? Asked Zetsu flatly. The second great ninja war was just a sideshow which is over now. The real act begins now, said Madara frankly. How long do we have? Asked the Mizukage seriously. A year. Maybe more if we are lucky. I can't say for sure. What I do know is that we are far from ready for them. This bastard was not easy to kill. I would say their scout was equal in power to a veteran Umbu of your legions. That should give you an idea of what we are about to face. Naruto harshly clenched the grass upon the ground as he saw the lifeless pale eyes of their final enemy staring back at him. The Otsutsuki, he whispered fiercely, understanding exactly what this meant for their world and his family. I once made a decision to make the Uchiha and Senju, two bitter enemies, to join forces in order to save this world. We made great sacrifices for the sake of humanity and our families. Even so, we didn't achieve the peace we fought for. Humanity has always disappointed me, Naruto. I know you feel the same way to an extent, but it is still a part of who we are, whispered Madara somberly. I am no hero, Madara answered Naruto honestly, not after his numerous failures and everything he had done in the pursuit of his own dreams. That's exactly why. Naruto looked up to see the former Uchiha leader giving him a knowing smile. This war will be unlike anything we have ever faced. To face the greatest monsters of this universe, we need a devil of our own. Someone willing to cast aside their humanity to protect that of our race and its future, said Madara honestly, as he offered his hand to the young Kage, who sighed tiredly. I am sick and tired of wars, lamented Naruto, even as he accepted the Uchiha's hand as the older man helped him get back on his feet. Or maybe the two of us were born for this. Gods of war who must save their minions even if they hate our very guts, teased Madara with a smirk. Now you're just being cocky, retorted Naruto with an amused smile. Hashirama is no longer with me in this great war. Yet I feel confident of our odds if we play our cards right. It won't be easy, and certainly not without very costly sacrifices. Maybe history will remember us as even greater monsters than the Otsutsuki themselves, said Madara with a dry chuckle. You two already are, retorted Zetsu sarcastically. Naruto saw Madara extending his right hand towards him once more as the Uchiha looked straight into his eyes. Will you be the devil that saves humanity? Chapter 48, Atonement. He looked at the large group of people staring at him attentively. Hesitation surged within his heart as he tried to contemplate a way to make the highest commanders of Kiri and Konoha, two of the three great nations, understand just what was coming for them all without appearing completely insane. The 7 ninja swordsmen had nearly rebelled against him once when suspicions had arisen over his true identity. If not for Mangetsu's unwavering faith in him, the Hozuki heir had rebuked Zabuza severely for even considering such rumors. Haku, Amuri and Jinpachi had backed him, making even Kisame relent. Zabuza had been the lone voice of dissent, or voice of reason in the swordsman's opinion, and he was not wrong if Naruto was being brutally honest. If not for the swordsman's powers and influence over their shinobi, Zabuza would have been executed. Still, such dangerous actions could not go unpunished, and the man found himself silently removed from the top leadership. Zabuza was assigned command of their navy, an important position but not one that was as glorious as the role of a legion's general that would be fighting important battles for the growth of their new nation. The remaining swordsmen had been relieved to not have one of their own be executed by the Mizukage for entertaining such conspiracies, and accepted the verdict that Zabuza had to face. In fact, this was the first time in a year when the man had even seen his former comrades, or the Mizukage, considering they had been campaigning while he was left behind to look after maritime security and shipping lines in the rear with the navy. Lord Fourth? Naruto was brought out of his thoughts when his wife gently called out to him and saw even Tobirama looking at him with concern. What does a Wagakure have to offer for requesting peace? He asked calmly, from his seat in the center of the large conference table. Immediate ceasefire across all fronts. Land of Waterfall will remain independent with a Wagakure, as their security guarantors should Kirigakure make any hostile moves. They are willing to admit their mistake in starting the Second Great Ninja War, explained Tobirama. Nonsense! They insult us with such an offer, said General Jinpachi Munashi angrily. They want to end this war with a meaningless apology and no reparations when we have reached their doorstep? They can't be serious, Lord Tobirama, said General Mangetsu Hozuki, albeit a bit more calmly than his fellow swordsmen. They killed many of our shinobi and even some of our predecessors in the 7 ninja swordsmen, reminded Zabuza heatedly. In response to you launching a badly planned invasion of their lands, retorted Shursui Uchiha, only to have Amuri Ringo slam her hand over the table. Then we'll just have to finish what our comrades started. Our legions will swarm their lands and crush them once and for all, threatened General Amuri Ringo. They have more men than you, General. Not to forget 3 Jinchuriki now that the land of Waterfall has allied with them to protect themselves from Kirigakure's relentless march. You have well-maintained supply lines now, but if you stretch any further your legions will be in trouble. Same goes for Konoha. Sustaining a war further is not just impossible but foolish. Think about our people, then your pride, rebuked Tsunade Senju. Tobirama watched in painful silence as the two factions argued fiercely against each other. To think they were allies. He looked at his son and respected him a bit more for being able to keep such fierce and ambitious generals in line so far. There was no doubt of their power or battlefield leadership, but they were not able to understand the larger picture of the war and its effect on their economies and, most importantly, their people. But would his son truly stop his conquest now? Granted, the odds were against him even more, but that had never stopped him before. Iwagakure and its Tsuchikage understood this grave threat and wanted to put a stop to it immediately. Enough! The ninjas from both sides stopped their relentless arguments and insults when they heard the thunderous command from the Mizukage himself. I understand my general's wishes, and to be honest, I don't trust Iwagakure to uphold this peace that they are fighting for right now, said Naruto carefully, and raised his hand to silence many of his generals from commenting any further. At the same time, I am a practical man. I will not endanger my nation and my men in another gruesome campaign. We need to focus on building our strength and allow our citizens time to build our economy while we strengthen our supply lines. We cannot ignore what our advance to Iwagakure will do to Konoha, who are our allies. So here is my offer for peace. Iwagakure will not only sign an admission of guilt but also sign a non-aggression pact with Kirigakure and Konoha. They will also pay reparations for every Kiri shinobi and the earlier 7 ninja swordsmen they killed. He looked around the gathering and saw nearly everyone was contemplating his offer. The Konoha delegation looked intrigued. As for his own men, they looked divided. It was no surprise when one of them voiced what they were all feeling. Why, Lord Fourth? Wasn't it your ambition to keep moving forward until all our enemies are destroyed? Asked Kisame honestly. Iwagakure will betray us sooner or later, Lord Fourth. It's in their nature, and while they may have more men than us, our forces are far better trained and equipped. Under your command, our legions have never lost. Say the word, and we shall march into Iwagakure alongside you no matter what hell awaits us, promised Mangetsu earnestly. Does the fact that Iwagakure killed your mother have an impact on your suggestion, Mangetsu? Asked Naruto sympathetically, for he had destroyed Kumogakure for doing the same to his own mother and family. It was my father's dream to crush those bastards. And I would be lying if my mother's death at their hands does not influence my desire to continue our march to their nation. But I also don't want future generations to inherit another war, a conflict which we could have prevented if we don't lose our resolve today, explained Mangetsu, earning a firm nod from Haku and Amiri as well. I share that feeling, agreed Naruto. Then, even so, my decision has been made. The Mizukage's firm declaration left no room for further discussion, considering there was no feudal lord overseeing him like in the past left him with the final say. Tobirama curiously watched the effect of that decision on Kiri's generals and admiral. They looked far from pleased, and while they were important figures, it was the army that was fiercely loyal to their Kage. These men and women would have no choice but to accept this decision if the rank-and-file shinobi agreed with their Kage's choice. From what he had seen so far, the Kiri army had become an extremely lethal and organized force under his son's command. They were confident and proud, but his own delegation had caught several common shinobi openly discussing their desire to see their homeland and families once again. They had left the land of water for what was nearly 2 years, and a few months from now, they had achieved stunning victories, and their conquest of nation after nation had ensured their place in history forever. But thousands of them had died, and those that survived had endured brutal conflicts and extreme conditions for what felt like eternity. But never once had they wavered, for their Kage had been right beside them, as had their generals who shared those same hardships which motivated them to keep going on. Another campaign with a foe as large as the land of Earth and its sheer might would mean a prolonged conflict for years and the deaths of thousands more who would never get to see their families again, not to mention risking the future of their vast but young nation. Compare that to a peace treaty that ended the war in their favor, if not as completely as their generals wished. Tobirama had a feeling what the common shinobi of Kirigakure and its territories would choose. Even if the Kirigakure generals wanted to continue fighting on their own, their men wouldn't follow easily. Not unless they had their hero and supreme commander, the 4th Mizukage, leading that campaign. Very well, Lord Fourth, relented Mangetsu unhappily, earning begrudging nods from all the other Kiri leaders except Zabuza, who clenched his fists but remained silent. You all have served our nation with pride and courage. We wouldn't have reached this far without your leadership and the sacrifices of our men, but we must let them rest and enjoy the glory they earned in blood. We will continue strengthening our supply lines and increasing our strength. In the event the land of Earth and Iwagakure make even a minor hostile move against us or our allies, they shall feel the wrath of our legions, promised Naruto. Tobirama nodded to that promise, since it was fair and was much needed to pacify the disgruntled Kiri generals. I will personally announce this decision to our legions, said Naruto resolutely. He received affirmative nods from his men and smiles from the Konoha delegation and his wife, but they were all quite intrigued when the Mizukage only glanced lower at his entwined hands. Tobirama saw happiness, as well as sadness, present on his 26-year-old son's face. I've been at war my entire life. As a child survivor of the First Great Ninja War, and now as one of the key participants in the Second Great Ninja War. I've led men into battle countless times, many of them never returned home. They died without realizing the dreams and hopes for which they sacrificed everything. Zabuza and the rest of the 7 ninja swordsmen couldn't help but remember so many of their own shinobi who had died to get them to this point. Men and women, even young teenagers and old veterans. Many died well, which was what any shinobi could hope for, others not so much. Remembering that cost made them all pause, for a continued conflict would bring even more terrible suffering for the ones who survived. The shinobi and citizens for whom those heroes had sacrificed their lives, could they let it all go in vain for their pride and fears of the future? They looked at their Mizukage and for the first time felt as to where their leader was coming from. his decision becoming more understandable instead of it seeming like an act done to appease their allies or out of cowardice. Tobirama and the Konoha delegation also had sad looks upon their faces as they remembered the countless comrades they had lost to this war. The former Hokage looked at his son and couldn't help but see a shadow of the young Spartan captain he had met years ago. My hands are stained with the blood of guilty and innocent alike. I have done things I'm not proud of sometimes in anger or revenge. Mangetsu could not help but remember his own actions in their civil war and felt a strange kinship with the blonde Kage before him who had made the same mistake. I have kept moving forward and the mountain of corpses upon which I stand has only grown higher and higher. We have achieved most of what we wanted. For the first time in my life, I have a choice to stop a war. Do I have misgivings about what a Wagakure will do in the future? Yes. Can I guarantee we will not find ourselves in another war? No, but I can send my men home now so that they could enjoy the peace our dead comrades gave their lives for, so that together we could build a greater nation that would be worthy of their sacrifice. Let's go back together to our village. Tsunade had heard many tales of the victories her uncle had gained on the battlefield, most attributed it to his genius and power. But she watched just how he connected with his followers. Mangetsu, Jinpachi and Amuri looked at each other before glancing back at their Kage with faint smiles on their lips. Haku too gave him a tearful smile and a firm nod. Kisame simply nodded, leaving only the last of the swordsmen to look at his Kage for a few more moments. Ultimately, even Zabuza nodded. Tsunade looked at her uncle even as his wife placed her hand upon his own and gave him a comforting smile. He had the ability to reach into the hearts of the fiercest warriors and make them believe. Be it a battle, war, peace, or the future, it was a gift only Hashirama Senju once had, and it had been passed on, which had now helped in ending the Second Great Ninja War. Late evening, Tobirama excused himself from the grand feast they had been facilitated with alongside the Kiri generals, as the person he was interested to talk further with wasn't present. Instead, he found the man inside his personal tent, completely content watching over his twins. The sight alone brought a smile upon the Senju leader's lips. I can come back later, he said hesitantly. Come, Lord Tobirama. Anyway, Mei won't be back from the feast soon. You can talk to me, answered Naruto calmly, even as he offered his thumb for his daughter to hold, which made the infant laugh. The former Hokage arrived by the Mizukage side, and even now he found it both unbelievable and fascinating to be looking at his grandchildren. Why didn't you join the feast? Asked Tobirama curiously, even as he saw his grandson Arima looking at him with a calm expression on his face. I barely get any time to see them since I am on the front lines and Mei stays with them in Kumogakure. If not for you coming here and my desire to make them meet you, I wouldn't get this time with them, answered Naruto truthfully. Tobirama understood that feeling quite well. If given a chance, he would have very much liked to be a part of his son's early life. Maybe if he had been there, his son wouldn't have endured all he had. I appreciate that, although I doubt they'll remember meeting me or Tsunade with them being so young, replied Tobirama with a smirk. Even so, I had to make them meet their family. That is their right, whispered Naruto. You're a good father. The Mizukage smiled upon hearing that rare praise from his father, and allowed the Senju leader to hold his granddaughter in his arms when he asked, Inoue looks a lot like Mei, and Arima takes after you. Naruto nodded until Tobirama looked at him seriously. Tell me the truth, son. You were in no mood to end this war just yesterday. What changed? I'll admit you are quite better than me at motivating people, especially your men. But I feel there is something more than just a desire for peace that made you end this war, said Tobirama suspiciously. As expected, you're right. Yes, I have other reasons for seeking peace, answered Naruto truthfully. Which are? Prompted Tobirama. Organize a Kage summit between the three great nations, even invite the smaller ones that are still standing. I'll reveal it there since this concerns us all, said Naruto frankly. What are you saying? Asked Tobirama once again. I'll reveal it there. You want peace and an end to this war, then you will do this. Tobirama narrowed his gaze and had a feeling whatever his son was not revealing was not something he would like at all. I'll see what I can do, he replied carefully. His son merely nodded, and Tobirama didn't know why it made him even more uneasy. There was something here that he wasn't able to understand just yet. Something wasn't adding up. If his son was sending his forces back home once an actual peace deal was signed, then how was he going to achieve his objective in Yuzu if the Fire Daimyo and the Hokage gave the go-ahead? His eyes widened as he remembered the Edo Tensei reincarnated Spartans he had met more than a year ago, summoned by Madara himself. There had also been rumors of an Uzumaki mercenary who had been a part of his son's campaign. The only one Naruto would ever trust like that from his own nation would be a fellow Spartan survivor. You're going to make a move on the Mizukage, he deduced, his voice turning cold when he saw a smirk upon his son's face. Do you really think I'll wait for permission from the likes of the brat Hiruzen and your daimyo? My target has always been one man, replied Naruto calmly. If you make a move on the Mizukage. Tobirama was silenced when his son's eyes turned blood red as he gave him a murderous glare. It is happening. I have waited for more than a decade for justice to be served. I thought you would be sensible, but clearly I was mistaken. I'll make it simple for you. Stand aside or else I'll join with the Wagakure and finish what it couldn't threaten Naruto. You would dare? Challenged Tobirama, his own anger unable to be stopped upon hearing that stark threat to his nation. And you would dare risk a war with your own son over the Mizukage? It was leaders like you that got my men killed. There will be a reckoning for that. Yuzu is my motherland and we will ensure the wrongs are corrected. You call me your family yet always put Konoha's interests above my own. I guess I was foolish to expect anything from you. My mother knew that, which was why she left and never revealed my existence to you, for Konoha would always be supreme to you above even your own family, chastised Naruto. You know that's not true, said Tobirama sadly, only to hear the young Kage scoff. Then stand aside and let me do what has to be done. That is if you were truly honest about correcting the injustice done to the Spartans, the promise you gave to my brother that day. Tobirama remembered his vow to Nagato Uzumaki quite clearly, yet to permit a direct attack on the Mizukage and their oldest ally. Why do you have Hashirama cells in your left arm, Naruto? Ever since he had arrived here, he had known something had been off about his son. At first, he hadn't been able to detect this dark reality, for the Mizukage had gone to great lengths to suppress this power from Tobirama's sensory grasp. But now he was certain. There was no mistaking this. He looked in the eyes of the young Kage to see no remorse or hesitation. What answer would you like? Asked Naruto. Tobirama clenched his fist as he had a terrible feeling in his heart. Whatever you are doing, this end goal that is driving you forward, there will be consequences for it one day, son, whispered Tobirama sadly. Is that a threat? Asked the blonde Kage. No. I do not agree with your hastiness and am disappointed with your lack of faith in me, but I made a promise to Nagato and those Uzumaki children, that I will help them get justice, one they never got in life but will in death. It was mine and Hashirama's mistakes as well as the Uzukage's decision that led to their deaths. My elder brother died before he could get the chance to correct the wrongs. But I am still here and accept the consequences of our actions, confessed Tobirama calmly. You'll get in trouble if you hide this from your people when they come to learn about it after the deed is done, warned Naruto. That is my problem to deal with, not that you give a shit. Naruto flinched upon that harsh but deserving remark, which made him lower his head for causing his father additional trouble. We don't plan on killing the Mizukage if it can be avoided. If he confesses to his actions and resigns, there will no need for bloodshed, answered Naruto truthfully. Would you do that if you were in his position? And there it was, the everlasting bitter truth which the Mizukage was forced to face by his own father. The Senju leader looked at his son with a knowing gaze. Every action has a consequence, son. This one will be no different. Walk on this path if you want to, but ensure the children don't end up suffering for the sins of their fathers. It's something which I failed in. Naruto's eyes widened in shock and his gaze instantly shifted towards his son and daughter. There were risks to his plan, but he had planned for every possible contingency. He looked back and found his father had already walked away. Anger surged within him as he clenched his fists bitterly. It's exactly why I must atone for my sins and create a better world, for their future. Something which my comrades never got. Next day, Mei watched the Konoha delegation leave for their own village in order to finalize the terms of the ceasefire with the Wagakure, and thereby bring an end to the Second Great Ninja War. The news had been met with overwhelming support from their own legions, barring a minority that wanted to continue fighting but were stopped when their Mizukage himself declared his desire to end this conflict and send them all home, back to their families and loved ones. While publicly she had voiced her support in favor of her husband's decision, as had the 7 ninja swordsmen, she couldn't help but feel something was wrong. It started with Naruto's insistence of Tobirama Senju and his grandniece being allowed to meet their children, then to the way he had signed off to a probable end to this war with less harsh terms for a Wagakure's surrender, and now he wanted to organize a Kage summit inviting all the leaders of the world. This was completely unlike his usual behavior, and his plans of conquest which he had shared with her nearly a year ago. She could understand not disclosing his reasons to the 7 ninja swordsmen and their legions, even their allies. But she was his wife, the mother of his children, not to mention his chosen successor in the event of his untimely demise. Their marriage had been made for political reasons which had elevated her clan's status to the highest level within their nation, matched only by the prestigious Hozuki clan. Even her own future changed for the better, as she finally managed to get the respect of her countrymen with her actions in the war, and in her efforts of building their nation. She owed everything in her life, including her 2 beautiful children, to Naruto, and if she was being honest, he had been anything but the ideal husband. He had cared for her with all his heart, and there had been moments when she had seen a gentler side of him. The way he was with their children truly pleased her, and yet she knew deep down that he was keeping quite a few things from her. He never talked about his family or his past, never even discussed about his previous wife, and had even shut her off quite harshly when she had tried to comfort him on that woman's death anniversary. That had been the only instance when he had behaved in such a way towards her, and it had given her a glimpse as to how much he had loved Ino Namikaze, and how she would probably never get the same place in his heart, no matter how hard she tried. She found him back inside their quarters going over a few reports after he had left early from bidding farewell to Tobarama Senju and his entourage. She had not missed the tension between them or the way the Senju leader had reacted upon seeing her children. It was as if he was looking at his lost family, and that unsettled her quite deeply. "May, I will be leaving for a few days tomorrow," he said calmly, without even looking at her. "What is going on?" she asked seriously, making him finally look up to see a heavy frown on her hardened face. "I don't understand," he answered, confusion evident on his face. "I backed you in public, but you have to tell me why you suddenly changed your mind about ending this war. A few days ago, you were discussing your plans of invading Iwagakure with me," said Mei harshly. "I told you, don't you lie to me." Naruto was quite taken aback and rose from his seat to walk towards her, and placed his hands upon her shoulder. "You're right, there are important reasons behind my decision. All I can tell you now without additional investigation is that I ended this war because we may need our legions alongside every available fighter of this world for a possible threat that concerns us all. One which we won't be able to face if we are at each other's throats," he answered patiently. "What is it?" she asked with concern. "There is a group out there that is greatly interested in seizing the chakra of this world, even more in the power of the tailed beasts. I'm sure the 6 tails inside of you may have heard of them in the past." The Otsutsuki. Mei had never felt her tailed beast react so swiftly as the giant slug became fully alert, and she could clearly feel the urgency it felt. "Let me speak to your husband," it demanded. "I don't understand." "Do it, girl. Haven't I given you enough to trust me by now? Besides, you know I can't get free from your body with him being there to restrain me," said the 6 tails irritatedly. Mei could not help but acknowledge the truth behind those words, as the 6 tails had remained dormant, and not tried to break out of her when her seal had been at the weakest during childbirth. It was also true that the 4th Mizukage had defeated not just it but also the 3 tails in single combat together during the civil war, which made both the beasts belonging to Kiri to be wary of launching any further rebellions and be punished severely by the young but powerful Kage. She allowed its request but also ensured her conscience was active as the beasts looked at the Kage seriously. "Where did you hear about that?" demanded the Biju flatly. "Judging from your alarm, you haven't forgotten about them since the days of the Sage of 6 Paths. That myth may just become a reality as a scout showed up on this planet and was dealt with swiftly. If my guess is correct, the main army won't be far away. We need to prepare," said Naruto seriously. Mei was increasingly alarmed when she felt the beast's resolve harden considerably as it glanced at the 4th Mizukage. "Old man 6 Paths told me and my brethren that those guys are a threat to everything on this planet, including us tailed beasts. That we had to set aside all differences and stand with mankind if they ever came," whispered the 6 tails honestly. It was surprised when the young Kage extended his right hand towards him. "I once told you and your brethren that someday I shall help improve your conditions. This is our chance. Help me in this war and humanity will remember your contribution. Instead of being regarded as wild beasts, maybe you will be instead remembered as guardians of our world against all threats that await us. Leave uniting humanity to me, and focus on uniting your fellow tailed beasts. While you are at it, brief my wife as to what we are truly up against, for I need to go." The tailed beast sighed at being ordered around like that, but it was willing to cut the man some slack considering the possible threat he was trying to investigate. "Leave the other beasts to me." "Do you really think you can unite your prickly race?" asked the 6 tails doubtfully. "I will. No matter what it takes," promised the Mizukage resolutely, much to his wife's surprises as she witnessed his iron-clad resolve. "We'll see." 2 days later, Kushina Uzumaki had been standing atop her boat and observing the land in front of her, the sight of which alone brought back so many memories, happy and tragic alike. Her village, Yuzushi-Ogakure. This was where her story began, a nation for whom she had dedicated her heart and life only to be betrayed time and again. She could not help but love and hate it at the same time. She closed her eyes when she felt another person appear beside her in a black flash. "It's just as I remember," he whispered nostalgically. "The preparations are done. Yet I must still insist that you don't need to be here. Let me handle this," she insisted, only for the young Kage to smile ruefully. "I can handle this," he promised. "There is no telling how the Yuzukage will react. Besides, you have a family now, said Kushina hesitantly, and tried her best to hide the sadness within her heart. She knew his marriage to the Terumi girl had to be done as a part of maintaining his cover identity, but it still hurt to see him with a family that he shared with another woman, a dream which she had ever since she had been a young girl. But as she had learned, this world was a cruel reality where most dreams didn't come true. She saw him pointing at one of the peaks near the ocean. It was right there, where I was set upon this path. More than a decade earlier, tears fell from young Minato Namikaze's eyes as the disgraced former Spartan captain knelt near the edge of one of the mountain peaks overlooking the vast ocean. With trembling hands, he grasped the sword at his hip and unsheathed it carefully before placing the weapon right above his heart. He glanced at the sea and the beautiful beach upon which he had taken his oath alongside his comrades, only to fail miserably and get all his friends killed. Words couldn't describe the shame and misery he felt within his heart. He had survived their last battle with only the hope of avenging their deaths by destroying the ones who killed them, before he joined them in the afterlife. But with the war now itself over, with the declaration of a ceasefire negotiated by Hashirama whom his comrades had saved, there was nothing left for him to live for. He had already accepted the blame for getting his men killed on the Mizukage and the elder's suggestion. He had confessed to his people that it was his mistakes and cowardice that got their beloved Spartans annihilated without ever revealing the suicide mission that their own leadership had sent them on with false promises of reinforcements should things take a turn for the worse, aid which never came. It had saved the reputation of their nation as well as its leadership, even earning them much-needed reparations from Kumogakure for saving their honor as well, for the Spartans had not only destroyed a large portion of their military but also murdered a tailed beast, a secret which they were desperate to hide. Even now the Uzumaki were still mourning the lost Spartans, and they would be remembered for their sacrifice, and those Spartans who had families would be taken care of by the village for the rest of their lives. It was all he could give to his fallen comrades and nation, to atone for his failure, even though it would never be enough. Many of his own people had called for him to be executed, a demand which was strongly rejected by the Mizukage and the elders, but was one Minato himself would have accepted if only to end his suffering. Instead, he was dishonorably discharged from service and stripped of all his accomplishments. A living death was his fate. He would never be able to fight again as a shinobi of Yuzu, never get a chance to avenge his comrades, and was a pariah avoided and hated by everyone. It was why he had came here to bring an end to his suffering himself. Maybe if he was lucky, then he would finally get to meet his family and comrades, maybe even get a chance to apologize for failing them all. You can't hope for a happy ending with a tragic story, he whispered with a twisted smile. If only he could have gotten a chance to live a different life. With that regret and pain haunting his heart, he raised his sword and brought it crashing down upon his chest. Wait! He abruptly stopped before the blade completely pierced his chest and only resulted in a minor wound which the man who had stopped him healed instantly by kneeling beside him. Why won't you let me die? I've done everything you asked? He whispered miserably, not even having the energy or desire to fight this man. Because your story is not yet over, Captain Fox. You'll die on a battlefield like your comrades, not in this manner. I forbid this, said Hanzo Uzumaki fiercely, making the young boy laugh mirthlessly. I'm no longer a ninja. I don't take orders from you anymore or will get a chance to die like a shinobi. All thanks to you, replied Minato bitterly. It was the only way to spare your life. The people's anger over the loss of the Spartans was more than we had expected, confessed the Mizukage hesitantly. Death would have been mercy. But you don't know what that means, do you? The Mizukage sighed tiredly as he gained a seat beside the young and sole survivor of the now extinct Namikaze clan. The village is all that matters. Not you, me, or 1,000 Spartans, or all of our shinobi. My son taught me that when he gave his life to buy our clan time to get to this island and make it our home. If we hadn't done that, the Uzumaki clan would have been eventually wiped out like your Namikaze clan in the turmoil of a new emerging world. This island saved us all, gave us hope for a future, and for that alone it's worth fighting. This nation and its destiny is something greater than any of us. It's a hope for which my son and your comrades gave their lives, answered the Mizukage truthfully. Does the reparations we received from Kumogakure and support for your continued rule from Konoha also a part of this noble endeavor? Hanzo was quite taken aback and looked at the former Spartan captain in surprise. It would seem even after being discharged he had still managed to keep a few tabs on their leadership without them even noticing. It was a testament to his skills and their weakness, but it also gave him a solution to the problem they were facing. If I had known this was the price of freedom for this nation, I wouldn't have paid it, confessed Minato honestly. His gaze pointed at his feet solemnly. Do you remember the first day we met? Asked the Mizukage. Minato remembered the day clearly, as it had been the funeral of his adoptive father Yahiko Uzumaki, who had died while battling Kumogakure and saving his comrades. If Yahiko had not died, you wouldn't have developed a vengeful heart towards Kumogakure, said Hanzo honestly. Is that why you chose me to lead the Spartans? Asked Minato seriously. Your abilities were truly impressive more than anyone else, as was your leadership ability. But to be honest, it was the hate that I saw in your eyes that made me believe. One which turned even more stronger after your mother's death at the hands of Kumogakure. You were willing to set the whole world on fire to avenge your parents. You were willing to become a devil for the sake of victory, willing to walk the dark path if it got you your vengeance. None of your comrades, including your brother, had that darkness in their hearts. It was that resolve of yours that helped us bring an end to this war, confessed Hanzo. It only made the boy beside him weep as he understood the heavy price he had paid for that victory. There is still a way left for you to avenge your comrades and atone for your sins, said the first Mizukage, but the boy still didn't look up. The first great ninja war may have ended, but another one will start soon enough. You may no longer be able to fight as a frontline shinobi, but you can still protect this nation for which your comrades died. I want you to go to Kirigakure as a spy and help us forge an alliance with them, in the event Kumogakure attacks us again or Konoha turns on us for some reason. It would be good to have a backup ally for such a situation, said Hanzo seriously. I can't. Hanzo sighed upon hearing such a predictable answer from the broken Spartan captain, which made him procure a familiar photograph, the sight of which made the boy tremble and grasp his head even as tears fell from his eyes. I am giving you a chance to avenge your comrades and family, said Hanzo patiently. I don't feel anything except guilt and pain, Lord Hanzo, whispered Minato sadly. That's more than enough. The shocked boy finally looked up to see the Mizukage glancing directly into his eyes with a judgmental stare that made him tremble. The reason I am giving you this mission is because you chose the path of vengeance. If you hadn't, maybe you wouldn't have become a shinobi, which may have saved your brother's life as well, since he enlisted to protect you. You had a choice and you still accepted that suicide mission, for otherwise you would have lost your path of vengeance, since Yuzu would have been defeated in the war. If you had made a different choice, maybe you would have suffered, but your brother and your men could have been alive today. Nagato could have lived a peaceful life and Kushina could have married you and fulfilled her dearest wish. But you chose to go into that hell and take them all with you. Minato trembled as those very words vindicated him of the guilt he felt deep within his heart, one that ate away at his very soul. I allowed my son to die for this nation, and ordered so many shinobi, including the Spartans, to meet their end for the sake of my clan's future. That is my sin, as is yours for choosing vengeance, which led to this result. We both are selfish men, and until the day we get what we deserve, we must keep doing what must be done, said Hanzo seriously. It is what we owe our dead. Tears fell from Minato's eyes as he glanced at the photograph of his graduation class. A memory in which he could see Nagato, Kushina, Hate, Kasumi, and each and every one of his comrades smiling at him. A memory in a long and miserable life where he was truly smiling and was at peace. Minato Namikaze shall die today on this peak as a disgraced shinobi who took his own life over the guilt of getting his comrades killed. He shall get no honor in the end and will be remembered as a traitor by his own people. Hanzo was satisfied when he heard no protest from the broken boy, who only looked at him for a solution to end his suffering and atone for his mistakes before meeting his end. It was more than enough for Yuzushiyogakure's future, as he would still be useful. Each of our operatives acting as spies receive new names as part of their assignment. The same goes for you as well, said Hanzo honestly. A name with a meaning and purpose, one which will help you to do what must be done and give you strength that was stolen by this cruel world. Minato hesitantly nodded, earning a brief smile from the Mizukage, who placed a hand upon his young shoulders. Honestly, it is quite an uncommon name, not used very often in this world. In truth, it can trace its origins to a ramen topping, said Hanzo with a chuckle. He sighed when his attempt to make the boy smile a bit only failed miserably, as he simply stared at him blankly. However, I personally believe that it also stands for a person who keeps moving forward no matter what challenges are thrown at them. Against all odds, this person shall keep fighting for a better world, freedom and peace, said Hanzo honestly. What shall be my name? Asked Minato hesitantly, some curiosity finally appearing on his sad face. Naruto Namikaze. All those feelings from that day came back to him as he stared at his homeland, for which he had blindly walked upon that self-destructive path until he had met Ino. He had resigned himself to die in the service of an ungrateful Kage, and a nation that hated his very memory, until they disrespected his wish of letting the last Spartan live in peace. They had messed with Kushina's free will when she had tried to reveal the truth to their people, tried to turn her against him, even going as far as giving her proof to expose his true identity if he didn't toe the line. The only way he could atone for his failures was by restoring the lives of his comrades with Madara's help, lives that were sacrificed in his path of vengeance. But they would never be able to return to their nation as long as Hanzo Uzumaki ruled and did everything to hide his own crimes. If what he had done to Kushina and even to him in the past was any indication, the man wouldn't stop to eliminate the Spartans, which would render all his efforts pointless. You can still turn back. He smiled and placed a comforting hand upon Kushina's shoulder, for she was truly a kind person who found it in her heart to accept him after he told her the truth. She looked up in the sky as several familiar faces appeared on the horizon, and a smile arrived upon her lips as their deceased comrades joined the two of them. Naruto turned back to look at his comrades and saw nothing but determination in their hardened gazes. He clenched his fist and thumped it over his chest. It was his confession and apology at the same time. For you, we give our heart. Nagato, hate, Kasumi and every Spartan including Kushina clearly saw the apologetic eyes of their captain staring back at them all. I can finally make this right. Madara has promised to bring you all back to life once this is done, promised Naruto sincerely. We're not here for that, Captain replied Hate honestly. We're here for you, elder brother. To restore what was stolen from you, promised Nagato, and kick that old geezer off his mighty throne. There will be a reckoning for that bastard tonight, assured Kasumi fiercely. Her anger at being left to die still burned deep within her dead heart. We are here to break the cycle so that future Uzumaki children don't end up like us, and hold the Mizukage responsible for what he did to all of us, said Kushina with determination. The fourth Mizukage had a brief smile upon his lips as he looked at the resolve of his comrades. He remembered his promise of bringing them back, whether dead or alive, and how miserably he had failed in that. Looking back, he shouldn't have made such a promise in the first place, but the younger him had not seen what he had in the past decade. No matter, it was time to finally honor his promise and atone for his sins. He looked back at their island nation even as his comrades arrived by his side and said the words he never thought he would get a chance to say again. Let's go back to our village. Chapter 49, Retribution. Yuzushiogakure. Few hours earlier, Commander Reika Uzumaki had been a veteran of 2 great ninja wars and through her skill had ensured her elevation to Yuzu's top military command. She had now been chosen as the aging Mizukage successor. It was truly an honor she didn't think herself worthy of, but most importantly one she didn't want, for she had stayed long enough by Hanzo Uzumaki's side to learn many of his questionable decisions that he had taken in the name of protecting their nation. The most revolting had been his choice to create the Spartan program. She had understood their circumstances during the first great ninja war were extremely dire, but to experiment on their clan's young children and turn them into lethal killing machines. She had been among the minority who had vehemently opposed subjecting those young ones to such a miserable life, but one whose opinion was not considered. An entire generation of their brightest and most powerful children had their innocence stolen away, their bodies forever altered by brutal experiments, and thrust into the most chilling conflicts which even their clan's adults had no hope of winning. Victory after victory they had won, earning glory for their island nation, only to meet a tragic fate at the very end. She had seen those Spartans in action personally, with her past company acting as their opponents in their very first real battle simulation exercise. A task which they had beaten her men by a truly admirable margin. Each and every one of those Spartans fought as a unit, and had defended each other's backs. The battle strategy of their captain had been efficient, and unlike some of the leaders she knew, including the Mizukage, the young boy had always fought alongside his men and lead from the front in every battle. It was why she was still unable to accept that he would make decisions for his personal glory that would get his entire company killed in the war. She had been present at Minato Namake's trial, if it could be called as one. He had confessed to his crimes, but she had seen the look in his eyes. Broken. He had wanted to die, and most of the Uzumaki had wished for it after hearing his testimony, only for the Mizukage to deny that demand. As it turned out, the boy took his own life a few days later, which put an end to any future conflict between the Mizukage and those that wanted to see the boy punished for getting their village's most capable and youngest shinobis killed for his personal glory. It had been one of the reasons as to why she had agreed to become the next Kage of their nation, so that she could prevent such tragedies from ever happening again. She blinked in surprise when she saw Daisuke and Yukina, 2 of her veteran jounins, appear outside her apartment's window. The Mizukage wishes to see all available Tobiketsu jounins, and you, Commander, said Daisuke seriously. All of them? Asked Yukina in surprise, but was already halfway across her room to grab her gear. We don't know the details, but if he is calling all available jounins, then whatever this is could be serious, Commander, replied Yukina calmly. Reika smiled on seeing the girl's composure, and was sure Daisuke was content with the way the newly promoted jounin carried herself. Like them, Yukina had been a veteran of 2 great wars, with one of her most toughest fights being the Battle of Fujima Mountains, where she had fought as a young chunin under Daisuke's command. The Uzumaki commander paused briefly as she remembered how their unit had been understaffed by their leadership, and would have been annihilated had the Spartans not come to their rescue that day. The wars had taken a toll on their island nation. Their military strength had dwindled considerably. While they had progressed leaps and bounds in technology and economy, Yuza had less than 4,000 shinobi to defend its borders, with only 1/10 of them being veterans of any battles. The rest simply had not survived the constant warfare of the shinobi world. It was why experienced veterans like the three of them were extremely precious, and the fact that their leader was summoning most of such warriors currently available within the village, and not away on some mission, clearly meant he was expecting trouble. Whatever it was, Commander Reika Uzumaki was determined to face in order to protect her nation. She owed it to the Spartans and all her comrades that had died in the service of their homeland. Yuzukage's tower. Hanzo Uzumaki was a man well into his late 70s and had been serving as his nation's Kage for more than 2 decades now. He had seen the turmoils of the Clan Wars era, the madness during the foundation of the shinobi system, and 2 great ninja wars that followed after. But only now he was close to fulfilling his desire to raise his nation's status, to be considered as a true power of the world, including in the eyes of their ally Konoha, who considered them to be rowdy islanders despite the sheer knowledge and talents of the Uzumaki clan. He would not rest until his people were shown the respect they were owed, and years of his efforts was finally on the verge of paying off. Glancing at the 24 jounin alongside him made him more confident as he addressed them by getting up from his seat. "I have a mission for all of you. One that will require all your talents," he stated frankly. "What is it, Lord First?" asked Reika calmly. "It's a rescue operation. One of our deep cover operatives has managed to seize a high-value asset and is on her way to bring it to our village. Her actions have not gone unnoticed, however, and she has enemy shinobi in pursuit," stated Hanzo without hesitation. "What kind of forces and approximate strength?" asked Daisuke quickly. "A dozen hunters from Kirigakure." The Yuzukage was not surprised upon seeing the shock on the faces of his veterans, as most of their countrymen had quite a favorable opinion of Kirigakure, made only more stronger after their act of destroying Kumogakure and the Land of Lightning's feudal dynasty, which had been Yuza's prime enemies. "Why on earth would we pick a fight with a power like that?" asked Commander Reika urgently. "It's madness, Lord First. Aren't we trying to end the second great ninja war with Konoha's help? Through them, Kiri is our ally. Such an act will not go unpunished," warned Daisuke worriedly. "The 4th Mizukage will not let this go lightly, which is why you all are summoned to prevent that from happening. Take our operative into custody before their men do. Leave the politics to me," ordered Hanzo sternly. He saw quite a few of his shinobi didn't like that order or the course of action that had led them to this point, but none raised further objection when he glared at each and every one of them. "What kind of asset is our operative carrying?" asked Commander Reika seriously. "Tailed beast chakra." Commander Reika couldn't hide her shock and disgust at what she just had heard. Her comrades looked no different, as each of the veterans knew that their Kage had for years wanted for their nation to have a Biju to secure their future. However, none of the other nations would ever allow him to fulfill that ambition without destroying Yuza completely. Despite knowing that, he had still taken such a dangerous decision. "Lord First, do you have any idea what this will do?" asked Reika fiercely. "We need this power if our nation wants to survive. Konoha is getting extremely close to Kiri, and with peace now being discussed with IWA, I'm not sure where we stand on their priority list. What if they decide that it's best to annex our small nation and consume all the knowledge and skills of our clansmen?" retorted Hanzo coldly. "We have an army to prevent that from happening," said Captain Daisuke angrily. "We'll die before we ever let anyone take our freedom," promised Yukina with determination, earning nods from the other veterans swiftly. "As much as I admire your devotion and respect your skills, I can't let our clan's future hinge on that alone. And most of our shinobi are not veterans like you all. Against trained and vast armies of the 3 great nations we will never stand a chance. The Spartans were our ace in the first great ninja war, but during this war we survived because Konoha bore the brunt of the fighting and we acted in support. We need to have our own ace to survive this new world," explained Hanzo honestly. Commander Reika had a bad feeling within her heart as she looked at her Kage with all color draining from her face. "You're going to create the next generation of Spartans." Hanzo Uzumaki grimaced as his chosen successor said those words, making every shinobi in the room flinch, as the fate of the first generation of those warriors was remembered by everyone. "Not necessarily. We can use the Biju chakra to create tactical bombs that can flatten any invading army before they reach our homeland. But you're right, that is a crude strategy that the enemy can overcome. We need a new generation of warriors, more powerful than an entire legion and every special forces in this world. With Biju chakra in their veins, each of these warriors would be worth more than 1,000 common shinobi." "Reika, If you are to succeed me, then you need to be willing to make harsh decisions to safeguard the future of our clan and this village, admonished Hanzo. Before any further argument could continue, the first Mizukage slammed his fist on the table, making his men flinch. If we don't rescue our operative, then we would definitely have a war on our hands. What happens next can be decided later. I'll lead this mission personally since you all seem to lack resolve, chastised Hanzo. Lord First. You have your orders, Commander. Commander Reika and the other veterans flinched when the full killing intent of their Kage rained down upon them. It was more than enough to bring many to their knees and a testament to his power even at this age. She looked at Daisuke and Yukina, who were also opposed to what was happening but knew it was not the right time to start a fight. If their operative was captured by Kirigakure forces, then this treachery would come to light, which would definitely start a war in which they would have no allies. For she doubted Konoha would risk fighting a war against a power like Kiri, certainly not after what Yuza had done. She clenched her fists as she realized their Kage had already committed them to this course of action, and for the sake of her clansmen, she had to salvage this situation to the best of her ability. Hanzo watched his shinobi follow the command given to them as they exited out of the room. I hope this satisfies you, boy. The Mizukage bitterly grimaced when from the shadows of his office emerged a hidden Naruto Namikaze with a satisfied look on his face. Few moments later, there were only a few times in his life that had rendered Hanzo Uzumaki speechless, and as he listened to what the fourth Mizukage confessed made him tremble in fear and worry instantly. Tremble for the fact that the young man knew what Hanzo had done to Kushina, how he had forcefully ordered her to expose Naruto to Kiri forces should he not follow his motherland's orders, and somehow the crafty Namikaze had been able to break the control the Mizukage had gained over the last remaining Spartan comrade of his, and worry for the sanity of the man before him, for no one in their right mind would believe what he was revealing. You are many things but not a liar, Naruto. At least to me, or that's what I like to believe, said Hanzo with a heavy frown. Kushina doesn't know I'm here, nor does anyone else, replied Naruto honestly, except Madara Uchiha. Hanzo still hesitated even as he whispered that dreaded man's name, to think the bastard was still alive and had been pulling everyone's strings from the shadows. But it also explained quite a lot of mysteries. The Sharingan was one of the rare powers that could have freed Kushina from his control. If Madara had truly been controlling the land of lightning from the shadows in this war, then he had weakened it from within, making it easier for Kiri to crush it completely. The fact that he had managed to convert the Mizukage himself to his cause was already a defeat for Yuzu and its allies, even for Kirigakure as well as Kumogakure. The bastard played us all, cursed Hanzo, which only made the Kage before him smirk. He has been around long enough to know how this world works, replied Naruto simply. And so do you? Taunted the Mizukage, to an extent. Now that you know everything, what do you say to my deal? Questioned the blonde Kage. You ask for a heavy price, boy. Hanzo Uzumaki was surprised when he received a merciless glare from those cold blue eyes and felt a fraction of the power radiating from the Mizukage. It's nothing compared to what you have taken. The Mizukage sighed but gave a reluctant nod, for even he could see the Kage before him was not going to back down. If I do this, my legacy will be ruined forever, said Hanzo sadly, only to receive an even harsher glare from the former Spartan captain, who got up from his seat and now stood before the aged Kage. Your legacy is a stronger Yuzushigakure that none shall dare try and invade without thinking 100 times. I'll give you what is necessary to make it happen, even fulfill the mission you set me upon. Alliances may rise or fall, but any nation, no matter how strong, could never ignore a frightening power. The village is all that matters, even in death. And after that, said Naruto coldly, as he offered his hand to his counterpart. It is what we owe our dead. Hanzo smiled ruefully as he remembered these to be the very exact words he had said to the blonde before him years ago. It made him get up on his feet and look at the young man before him. Do you truly think the path you have chosen shall lead to peace? Bring an end to the countless wars between our race? Questioned Hanzo seriously. It shall. Whatever the outcome, humanity shall be victorious. I'll make sure of that, promised Naruto without a flinch, even when the Mizukage glared deeply into his eyes. Do the others know about this? Kushina? Asked Hanzo gently. Silence was his answer. She'll follow you into hell even if you don't ask. So shall the Spartans if what you say about their revival at the hands of Madara is true, said Hanzo kindly, making the young Kage before him to offer a faint smile. I promise to bring them all home, and I'll honor my word. They are the future of this nation. They cannot follow where I am going, he whispered. Hanzo Uzumaki nodded gravely as he shook the younger man's hand with a heavy heart. He was not surprised when the Mizukage summoned a large scroll inside the room, and Hanzo realized it had what he had always wanted for the future of this nation. Tailed Beast Chakra. Will you be able to bear this burden? Answer me truly, he whispered hesitantly. War is something which I know very well, Lord First, answered the young Kage calmly. Yes, that you do. I'll play my art and put on a good show, promised the Mizukage. That is our deal. This tailed beast chakra is from the 2 and 8 tails. I doubt the clan will allow you to do human experimentation with it after this. Develop tactical weapons if you truly feel it is necessary to protect our country from other powers. Although if I succeed there will be no need for that, said Naruto seriously. Hanzo nodded heavily before giving one last smile to the blonde before him. I wish you good fortune in your war, Minato. And I'm sorry for doubting your loyalty to our country. A solemn smile was all he received from the young Kage in return. Few hours later, Kamini Island, few miles away from Uzumaki-Yogakure's border, Commander Reika and her men had completely secured the tiny island which was to be the rendezvous point with their secret operative. She saw their Kage openly standing at the beach with a patient gaze. Commander, this could be a trap, warned Captain Daisuke. Possibly. If our operative was captured, she could have spilled our secrets under Kiri's infamous torture and interrogation. If that is the case, we would be facing their navy instead of a few dozen hunters chasing a spy, Reika whispered with a heavy frown. The bait may seem too obvious, but it did manage to get the Mizukage himself to show up, said Daisuke worriedly. Before she could respond, one of their spotters brought their attention towards the sea, where on the far horizon Reika could now see a lone figure running towards their location at rapid speed. More figures followed after them, and she readied her men upon the Mizukage signal. Together they unleashed the whirlpool storms across the ocean which stopped the pursuers dead in their tracks and swallowed them swiftly, allowing the lead figure to close the distance. Reika's eyes widened in disbelief as she got a better look at their operative. Beside her, Daisuke alongside nearly all of their veteran warriors watched in shock as they saw a kunoichi in Spartan uniform now approaching towards them. It can't be, they are supposed to be dead, whispered Daisuke in alarm. Commander Reika glanced at the Mizukage and saw the man didn't share their emotions. In fact, he looked very displeased, but there was no doubt that he knew exactly what was happening. She had to find out just what the hell was going on. Kushina Uzumaki didn't betray a single emotion across her face as she walked towards the man that had made her life a living hell. She was not surprised to find he had brought back up to protect himself, and his prized steel which she was supposed to be carrying across a large scroll on her back. She narrowed her eyes when a few of the Jounins marched towards the Kage led by another female redhead in her late 30s. The woman looked far from pleased and shot off a few rapid questions to the Mizukage, who silenced the dissenters with a harsh warning before glancing back firmly at Kushina as she neared the bench. Why are you in that uniform, ghost? Asked Hanzo Uzumaki with a heavy frown on his aged face. It is who I am, Lord First, she answered calmly. I didn't see much of a pursuit, honestly. Either you were exaggerating or Kiri's hunters are nothing but a joke, said the Mizukage suspiciously. I killed most of them, the rest were just weaklings. Or have you forgotten our power? She challenged fearlessly. If only he knew the pursuers were merely her clones dressed as Kiri hunters whom the Spartan kunoichi killed. We will deal with this breach of protocol later. Hand over the package, commanded Hanzo impatiently. He frowned when Kushina gave him a cold smirk as she pointed her right hand up towards the sky. I have a package, just not the one you wanted. Commander Reika and the rest of the Jounin looked in the said direction only to freeze in their spots as from the clouds in the sky came familiar figures long thought lost. Impossible, whispered Hanzo in disbelief. Every Uzumaki shinobi couldn't understand the sight of the fourth Mizukage himself dressed in the uniform of the Spartans, and leading those lost warriors right towards them from the sky. None of them could move as the Spartans surrounded them from all sides as they descended upon the island, but made no move to initiate hostilities just yet. The fourth Mizukage landed beside Kushina, and on his hip, Reika saw a hauntingly familiar fox mask. It's been more than 10 years, old man. Hanzo clenched his fists even more painfully. Why are you here? He asked knowingly. I promised to bring my comrades home. Although it took a very long time, answered Naruto somberly. We don't want any bloodshed, Hanzo. Confess and we can end this peacefully, said Kushina honestly. You deserve to die for what you did to us and our captain and ghost. Still, for the sake of our clan, confess and walk away with your life without destroying any more lives for your ambition, warned Nagato coldly, even as he alongside the rest of the Spartans had firmly aimed their weapons at the Mizukage and his followers. Hanzo Uzumaki looked at the Spartans surrounding him, and even now he could still remember many of their names and faces. Unlike Minato and Kushina, who were adults now, the others looked the same age as he remembered. Hate, Kasumi, Matsuri, Kido, Jiang, all eyes that once had respect for him were filled with nothing but hatred now. You truly are the embodiment of vengeance incarnated, whispered Hanzo with a wry smile, as he looked at the former Spartan captain. It was you who taught me to keep moving forward and destroy my enemies, answered Naruto calmly. And is your own motherland your enemy now, boy? The great conqueror finally here to enslave his own people? Roared Hanzo furiously. He was relieved when the outburst finally made the jounins around him to raise their own weapons, if only to protect themselves and not their Kage. Still, the manipulating bastard until the very end cursed Kusumi furiously, and was about to attack the Kage when Nagato stopped her. To his surprise, Commander Reika and Captain Daisuke also signaled their own comrades to maintain the uneasy peace. The said woman then marched forward again to stand near the Mizukage. "What the hell is going on here? Answer me," she asked angrily, foregoing all respect that she usually addressed her leader with. Hanzo. The first Mizukage was quite surprised on hearing the Mizukage calling out to him respectfully, and despite the situation, he saw a genuine plea in the blonde's eyes as he pointed at the Spartans around them. "Hanzo, both of us are devils and selfish-minded. We deserve to be punished, but not them. They fought long and hard, never wavered until the bitter end. For clan and country they sacrificed their future. If you truly want our nation to have a bright tomorrow, then we need to cherish our children instead of turning them into killing machines. Please let me bring them home," urged Naruto sincerely. Hanzo remembered the final battle of these children quite clearly from his interaction with the blonde before him years ago. It was one thing to hear about it, but quite another when he looked at their young faces and truly saw what they must have felt back then. Most would have surrendered, but even when they were betrayed by their Kage and nation, these children had fulfilled their mission and saved their country and its future. "If this is to be my reckoning, what is yours?" he asked quietly, earning a sad smile from the blonde Kage before him. "I can never come home." Hanzo's eyes widened as he understood the pain behind those words and realized just what path he had set this boy upon. "I'll never get to live in my motherland again, never get to enjoy life alongside my friends and countrymen, never see the future we dreamed of together. I must keep walking through this hell until I get what I deserve. That is my punishment." Commander Reika and the rest of the Uzumaki shinobi watched the Spartans lowering their weapons upon hearing those words. They watched the Mizukage walk forward until he was standing in front of the old Mizukage and offered the man his hand. The irony wasn't lost on the Mizukage, which made him offer a cold and ruthless smile. "And should I resist? Then you shall face the wrath of the monster you created, Lord First. Tell us what you have done that has brought this calamity to our shores," demanded Commander Reika urgently. Hanzo Uzumaki was many things, but in his opinion everything he had done was for the sake of the island nation behind him. Knowing what was in front of him now, and the implications for his country and people should he make the wrong choice, was truly frightening. Even so, he had to make one. "I chose young children with great talent and physique, but more importantly with a keen sense of justice, bravery and loyalty towards their nation. I made them into ruthless shinobi and robbed them of the future they deserved. I threw them into conflicts that terrified even our adults, yet they never complained and achieved victory after victory for us. They became our hope," confessed Hanzo solemnly. Commander Reika and the rest of the Uzumaki veterans remained silent, as it was for the first time they saw their leader like this, while glancing at the Spartan children with guilt evident in his tired gaze. "In the end, I sent them on a suicide mission with false promises of reinforcements should they face any grave threat to their lives. Kumogakure had captured Hashirama, and our only ally Konoha was at the brink of surrendering to save their leader. If that had happened, then Yuzu would have been doomed and left at the mercy of Kumogakure. The Land of Fire didn't have the right shinobi who could go deep behind enemy lines and save Hashirama to prevent such a future," revealed Hanzo. "You sent our clan's children on a suicide mission?" asked Commander Reika furiously. The disgust on her face was met with a stoic glance by the Mizukage. "They were the only ones who could do it. I sent them to their deaths after my former advisors also agreed with the decision. We didn't think success could be achieved given the odds, and yet we were proven wrong," said Hanzo silently. "They crushed the Kinkaku, slayed hundreds of Kumogakure forces, dragged Hashirama hundreds of miles towards the safety of his homeland while suffering mounting casualties. In the end, they were surrounded near the border by Kumogakure's Raijin battalion and the Two Tails. Instead of surrendering in the face of overwhelming force, they made a valiant last stand and allowed their captain to get their rescued hostage to safety. They died devoting their hearts for our future." Silence stretched across the small island as that confession sank in across every person. For the Spartans, it was a fulfilling moment as their tragedy and betrayal was fully revealed by the man responsible, whereas for the rest of the Uzumaki adults, it was a painful truth that made their own hearts heavy with guilt for driving their young clan children to such a tragic end. "If they died, then how are they still here now?" asked Captain Daisuke hesitantly. "Edo Tensei. It's a forbidden jutsu developed by the second Hokage that brings the dead back to the world of living. I allied myself with another person who knows this technique. With their help, I plan to bring my comrades back to life once again so they could see the future that was robbed from them," warned Naruto coldly. Whispers spread across the Uzumaki Jounins as the implications behind the revelation were quite dire. "You're Captain Fox, the leader of the Spartans." "I thought you took your own life," said Yukina Uzumaki sadly, earning a faint but rueful smile from the blonde. "In a way I did. Minato Namikaze, the boy I once was, did kill himself." "And that is another unforgivable crime of yours," Hanzo said Kushina icily, earning a nod from the aged Kage. "In order to hide my own decisions as well as save our allies' honor in return for steep reparations, I alongside the High Council coerced Minato to take the blame for this tragedy in return for promising to look after the families of the Spartans who still had loved ones in the village and honoring their sacrifice. I made him a spy, asked him to infiltrate Kirigakure to serve our interests there by forging an alliance with them. I turned him into a disgraced shinobi and ordered him to leave his motherland, tarnishing his memory forever." The Mizukage looked at the hand being offered by the very same man and then looked into his eyes even as his supporters turned their weapons towards him instead of the Spartans led by the Mizukage. With a resigned smile, the aged Kage shook the offered hand and felt a great burden being relieved from his shoulders. "You play the bad guy next," whispered Hanzo calmly. Naruto's eyes widened in shock for a moment before understanding dawned upon him as he saw the Spartans, the Uzumaki, his motherland. Remembered his wife and children back in Kiri, his family in Konoha, and all the people that looked up to him. The Kinkaku, Kumogakure, Land of Lightning, and the Mizukage. They were all defeated. But the greatest enemy of all was coming, and all of his people, all of humanity, was not ready. "Yours is a path of pain and suffering, Minato. But you have a strength which no one else has. The fate of your country, your comrades, your family, and all those who follow you depends on how you lead them. Keep moving forward, and I pray you make better decisions than I did," said Hanzo sincerely. "I will promise." The fourth Mizukage. Hanzo nodded solemnly as the Jounins led by Commander Reika arrived beside him and took him into custody. As the disgraced Kage was led away, Reika stayed back and looked at the fourth Mizukage, who she was still not able to believe was her countryman in reality. "I don't know what to say or what to call you even," she whispered hesitantly. "Are you his chosen successor?" asked Naruto curiously. "I am. Although I never wanted to be one. Certainly don't after what happened," she confessed with a mirthless chuckle. "Konoha is an ailing power and one that will always look after its own interests," warned Naruto. "What happens after you are gone or your true identity gets exposed? That's what worries me. If history is to be accepted, our nation's strategic location and our clan's intelligence and resourcefulness will always be a threat to other great nations. However, we will never have the strength necessary to thwart those powers should they turn hostile," said Reika worriedly. "Not with the Spartans or whatever secret power that Hanzo must have kept hidden. If worse comes to pass and I am truly exposed, then you must denounce me. Call me a rogue out for vengeance. Expose my hand in this coup. Anything to protect Yuza," said Naruto seriously, much to Reika's dismay. "After everything you have done for us, after what the Mizukage forced you to do, we won't abandon you. Yuza shall stand behind you. Promise," Reika fiercely, only for the Kage to sigh in frustration. "Don't be naive, Commander. I won't let everything I have fought for get destroyed just to save my life. You will do what is best to protect our beloved nation. That is your role as the second Mizukage," explained Naruto seriously, earning a hesitant nod from the older woman. "I don't know about that honestly. I'll need to consult others in the clan. Things will be run much more democratically from now onwards if we are to avoid the mistakes Lord First made. After our people learn of what happened here, I doubt they would be in favor of anointing a candidate chosen by Hanzo as their next leader. I can already see a succession crisis," said Reika frustratedly. "I will not interfere with that decision. However, if you are looking for a leader, then Kushina will be a good choice. She is strong and has devoted her entire life for our nation's future. More importantly, she is not a war hawk and knows what's best for our clan," said Naruto, as he gestured towards the said Spartan operative. Reika looked at the said woman and could see some merit to that suggestion. Still, it was a decision for their clan to make, and not her. "Lord First, what did he say to you at the very end?" she asked hesitantly, earning a sad smile from the Mizukage. "The very reason you must keep the Jounins present here from ever revealing my true identity, or of my presence here to our people. Honor the memory of the boy I once was if you wish. Gods know I don't deserve it after what I have done. In the near future, you may need to wash your hands off me completely. All I ask is that you welcome my comrades back as heroes of our nation and look after them." Reika looked into those determined eyes and could only offer a solemn nod as she understood his reasons. 2 days later, Madara looked at the young Kage in front of him, or rather the clone of that man who was looking at him expectantly to hold his end of the bargain. "I'm surprised this ended peacefully. Although you did cut a crafty deal," said the Uchiha honestly. "For once, we are glad that blood was not spilled." Hurting one's family and nation is not easy, no matter how much pain they inflict upon us, answered the Mizukage's clone somberly. Do you wish to stay with your family? Live the dream that was stolen from you? Asked Madara curiously, but Naruto's clone shook his head. It is a dream I can never be a part of. I want them to live long lives in peace, and for that I must fight. Zetsu looked at the young Kage with an unreadable expression on his face upon hearing those words. I hear the Kage summit will be organized soon. Tobirama and his cronies are pushing hard for that based upon your request. Are you truly prepared for that, and what needs to be done? Asked Madara seriously. I am, for only I can do this. I'll honor our deal as long as you give me what I want, answered the clone with determination. Madara nodded respectfully as he felt a tentacle emerge from the Gedo statue behind him and attach itself to his back. He grunted when he felt the sheer chakra and life force he was now connected to, which was necessary given he was about to bring so many back from a realm none had ever returned from. Gedo art, Rinne rebirth, Yuzushi Ogakure. Kushina couldn't believe what she was seeing as a strange green light enveloped all of her Spartan comrades standing together at the beach. Every one of them looked surprised and were soon overjoyed as they felt life returning back to their cold corpses. She looked at her side and saw a relieved smile visible on Minato's face. You did it, she whispered gratefully. We did it, he corrected her gently, and it was all it took for her to lose control over the dam of emotions she had controlled for more than a year. He was not surprised when she hugged him fiercely, even as tears fell freely from her eyes. Don't go, Minato. We have everything we need. We can finally live the dream we shared. All of us, she pleaded desperately. She felt him wrap his arms around her but couldn't see the tears that arrived in his eyes. I wish I could, so much so that it hurts. But you of all people know that I can't, he whispered sadly. Then I'll go with you. Till the end, remember? She asked tearfully, and this time she did hear him fight back a sob and tighten his grip around her. I release you from that promise, Ghost. This island, our comrades, my brother, I entrust you with them. Kushina gently broke the hug so she could look him in the eyes, and her heart broke into a million pieces on seeing his determined yet saddened gaze. She knew he was saying goodbye, and it broke her heart. Even so, she stepped close and kissed him fiercely, pouring everything in her heart for him, and was content when he returned the gesture with equal passion. Few hours later, Nagato had a wide smile on his face as he truly breathed fresh air even as he stood at the beach of Kamini Island. The rest of their comrades had went back to the mainland under Kushina and Commander Reika's honor guard, but he had stayed back and now saw his elder brother walking towards him. He was intrigued and barely managed to catch a couple of scrolls which the Mizukage threw at him. What's this? He asked curiously. Naruto simply smiled and gestured him to open it, and as he did so, Nagato's eyes widened when he saw it had several volumes of his favorite manga. One that he never got to read when he died, and had asked his brother to read in his place for both of them. It even had a final volume marking the end of the story. You remembered, elder brother, he whispered in a tearful voice. Of course I did, moron. Consider it as part of my gift to you for a new life, said Naruto happily. You can't stay, can you? Asked Nagato somberly. No. Our paths are different, brother. I am only returning what I took from you in my quest for vengeance. Now I entrust you with living our dream. Find happiness and peace, Nagato requested Naruto, still bossy as ever. I wish mother and father were here to see us like this, said Nagato wistfully. He didn't understand the strange expression that came upon his brother's face on hearing that before the taller blonde came forward to hug him. Farewell, brother. I wish you a good life. I'll find a way to come and see you from time to time. Maybe get to meet my niece and nephew if I'm lucky, said Nagato desperately in an effort to avert the tears arriving in his eyes. Someday, brother. I'll make sure you get to see them. Nagato nodded as he returned the hug with a heavy heart. A few moments later, the Mizukage broke the hug and stepped back to look at the younger redhead with a smile. Take care of Kushina, the Spartans, and Yuzu. And I'm truly sorry for what I made you guys go through, said Naruto honestly, with one hand pointed towards the ocean, making his brother look in that direction. Nagato was about to reply but froze when he saw two familiar figures approaching towards their island nation. He couldn't hold back his tears at the sight of Yahiko Uzumaki, and Inoue Namikaze, his parents, now alive and breathing, a wish he never thought would be fulfilled. So this was the rest of your gift to me, elder brother. Understanding dawned upon him as he realized the significance of what his sibling had done for him personally and for their broken family. He turned back to look at the said blonde only to see he was already gone. He clenched his fists painfully and wanted to cry but couldn't when those familiar voices called out to him. Is that you, Nagato? Few miles away from Konoha, Ino Yamanaka didn't understand when she had been summoned in the familiar forests near her village with the help of Edo Tensei. She was even further surprised when a strange light engulfed her moments later, and her eyes widened when she felt life returning back to her cold corpse. It didn't take her long to understand what was happening, and she couldn't help but look at the Mizukage who appeared before her in a dark flash with disbelief, happiness, and sadness at the same time. "Why go so far, my love?" she asked gently, as he shook his head defiantly. "You made your choice." "This is mine," answered Naruto. He was surprised when she walked forward and embraced him within her arms. He felt her laughing and sobbing at the same time, felt her warmth and heartbeat, which made all the suffering he had endured for this moment worth it. A part of him felt guilty as well, for he loved this woman more than anyone else. Kushina still saw the boy she had grown up with when she looked at him, a boy that had died years ago. Their future which could never be achieved with the path he was walking. For Mei, it was worse. She didn't know his true self. She was the fourth Mizukage's wife and successor, the mother of his children. For her he was the great conqueror, a fine Kage, a war hero, and maybe a decent father to their children. But no one knew and understood the real Naruto Namikaze, the man he truly was, except for the woman in his arms. He felt her requesting permission to see his memories, to understand what had happened since they last met, one which he granted her without hesitation, for he was so tired of bearing it all on his own. Ino was truly amazed to learn that it had been longer than a year since they had last seen each other, and all that had happened. She was pleased to know that he had at least honored some of her wishes, and worried over the arrival of the first Otsutsukis. They were both sitting next to each other holding hands and watching the night sky full of stars above them. "I'm going to reveal about the Otsutsuki at the Kage summit. In a way the other Kage understand what we face in the near future," he confessed. "And if they refuse to believe?" she asked pointedly. "Then I'm the bad guy, one who must destroy this messed up shinobi system." Madara still believes I'm being naive and foolish in choosing the peaceful approach, trying to reason with short-sighted men. "But I must try," said Naruto earnestly. "If you truly become the devil they think you are, would that truly be a victory for humanity?" she asked sadly, even as she squeezed his hand affectionately, trying to impart what little strength she could. Her eyes widened in surprise when he looked back at her, and the answer she sought was there for her to see. "There was a time when I fought out of loyalty, followed by one out of guilt, and vengeance thereafter. Do you understand what I am fighting for now?" he whispered, earning a solemn nod from Ino. "Your children, everyone you love or care for, including those that don't know the real you but still follow," replied Ino with compassion in her softened gaze, earning a firm nod from the fourth Mizukage. "They must be set free from the cycle of violence, horrors, and hatred that has plagued us till this day. No matter the cost," declared Naruto resolutely. "It won't come to that. I believe that us mankind are like a pack. We may stray from each other, but when faced against a common enemy, we always unite," encouraged Ino. He didn't respond to that, and instead kissed her gently before getting back on his feet. "You should return to Konoha if you wish, although it will raise its own hell once Tobirama and the others discover it," he warned. "I don't want to cause trouble for anyone. To be honest, I fulfilled my oath as a shinobi, even gave my life in the service of my nation. Now that I have received this gift of a new life, I don't want to waste it," said Ino seriously. "What are you proposing?" he asked curiously, as he turned to face her. "I don't know yet. I need time to decide my own path," Ino answered nervously, only to have him place his hands comfortingly upon her shoulders and offer a warm smile. "You're free." Her eyes widened as she couldn't believe just how much he cared for her, even after everything her actions put him through. Even now, he had been through hell to bring her back and was still content to let her live in peace instead of asking her to be by his side, a right which he had earned dearly in her heart. However, before she could say something, he vanished in a dark flash, making a lone tear fall from her eyes. "And I'm truly sorry that you are not, Naruto." Chapter 50, Deceiver. Kirigakure. Mei Terumi watched the entirety of their village arrive at the gates to watch the return of their triumphant army led by the greatest Mizukage of their nation. Even as they walked through the entrance with the thunderous applause from their citizens, Naruto led the victorious army with his usual calm and composure, while humbly acknowledging the respects he was shown by the villagers with a few waves of his hand. Behind him came his infamous generals and admiral, formerly the 7 ninja swordsmen, who were met with equal cheering, an act which made them all swell with pride. Even she, the hated Jinchuriki, at one point was met with rave cheering, not only as the Mizukage's wife but as an important warrior of this nation. It gave her peace and showed just how much had changed in her life in a very short span. But it was not the time alone that had changed. She remained the ever-silent and dutiful wife even during the ceremony that came after, where her husband honored all their war dead, awarded medals and golden crowns for bravery to many veterans, gave a thankful speech to all his men, and honored his promise of freeing the families of their martyrs from ever paying taxes again, an oath he had given to those dead men and women of Kirigakure who sacrificed themselves in his battles. It was late evening by the time they finished their duties and were now heading back to their home where their children would be waiting. Even then she was silent as she looked at the enigma of a man walking beside her. There was no doubt in her mind about his prowess as a shinobi and a kage. She had never seen such a charismatic and brilliant commander like him in the shinobi world, a fact acknowledged by even other kages after his heroic victories. He was loved by the people of Land of Water, even the former of Land of Lightning and the other territories they had seized. Under him many things had changed in this world, for the better. Even in their marriage, he had always treated her with respect and compassion. He loved their children dearly. If someone looked in her life from the outside, it would seem perfect. Many even told her so, and yet it wasn't, far from it, for she had started to notice the changes within her husband recently, not to mention the disturbing rumors she had heard about an affair that he had with that Uzumaki mercenary during their campaign against Kumogakure. Thankfully the woman had went away herself after achieving that goal, thereby quelling any further rumors. Naruto, however, had made no effort to crush them in the first place, choosing to let them run its course and die in time. A strategy which worked for everyone else, just not his wife, who was dismayed by his actions. May knew theirs had been a political union, to benefit their standing and future. But she had seen a brief flicker in him, that somewhere deep down he felt something for her, and in time it could transform into something eternal. A childish dream of a naive young girl, for she knew now that his heart would always belong to his first wife, Ino. He very rarely mentioned about her in May's presence, but whenever she had seen the sheer joy and life in his eyes, a feeling he lacked very much in their interactions. There had always been a distance between them, but also trust and understanding, something which was also slipping away rapidly as he was keeping things from her, making secret trips, and had kept a truth as grave as the existence of the Otsutsuki from her. Now that the Six Tails had explained just what threat they represented, it was fair to say she was not at all happy with his recent behavior. Still, she kept her calm until they reached their home and settled in. She checked on her children first, even though she knew the babysitter from her clan would take good care of them, and then joined her husband for dinner, which went peacefully without a word being spoken. Even so, she could sense a lingering sadness within the man, even though he had achieved so much love and victories. Something was wrong with him, and it became crystal clear when hours later she found him standing near the cradle of their twins, with few tears slipping from his eyes. "Will you talk to me?" she asked gently. There was a time when seeing him like this would have made her want to comfort him immediately, but the chasm between them was getting wider and wider, much to her sorrow. When he looked at her, May saw the way his shoulders were slumped, and he looked so tired, but nodded as he walked with her towards their adjacent room. As she gained a seat on their bed, he walked towards the nearby table and procured a sealed dossier from one of the drawers, which piqued her interest. "I'm so sorry, May," he whispered sincerely. "Are you Naruto?" He flinched on her cold retort even as he gained a seat away from her on a chair and slumped in it quickly. "It's time I tell you the truth, all of it." "You deserve to know," said Naruto hesitantly, before it was too late. A thought which he kept to himself. "I know you broke our wedding vows." "Don't deny it," said May bitterly. She didn't understand why he seemed surprised that she knew, but there was also another emotion in his eyes that made her even more nervous. It was as if he was hiding even worse things from her. "Yes," he confessed, making her tear up instantly. "Why? I have given you everything, haven't I? What made you do this?" she asked tearfully, which made him lower his head in guilt. "You have given me everything, May. It's just, you don't love me." His eyes widened in shock upon hearing those words and had to fight every nerve inside of him that wanted to jump and console the woman that was breaking in front of him. But he had lost that right long ago. "Even so, that's not true, May. I did try, and I do love you," he said honestly, for it was the truth. Despite everything, a part of him loved her dearly and hated putting her in this situation. It was exactly why he had not pursued a relationship with Kushina or asked Ino to come back into his life, for he would only end up hurting them as well in the pursuit of his goal, and they deserved better, all of them. "Then why?" asked May angrily. "The answer to that lies in who I am. My past," he whispered hesitantly, even as he got up from his seat to walk forward and offer her the dossier which Hanzo Uzumaki had created and entrusted Kushina to leak should he go out of line. An evidence that damned him completely, and revealed his true story. May's eyes widened in surprise when she spotted Yuzushiyogakure's symbol on the dossier and froze in shock when she opened the first page as her world came crashing down. For there lied the greatest betrayal of her life and that of her country. "My true name is Minato Namikaze, former captain of Uzushiogakyo's Spartan Black Ops. He watched all color drain from her face upon hearing those words as she stared at his service record, where a much younger version of him stared back at her with the most determined and vengeful gaze she had ever seen in a person. She became more and more numb as she read through his exploits in the first great ninja war, his family history. My mother was Inoue Namikaze and my biological father was Tobarama Senju. Although these records have no information of that, for my mother kept it a secret from everyone and told me about it only before her death. Through them and my ancestry, I have the blood of the Namikaze, Senju, and Uchiha clan running through my veins, said Naruto honestly. What are you saying? What is this? Asked Mei in horror. My truth. I was a spy. Mei felt her heart stop momentarily upon that confession, even as her body started to tremble in absolute fear as she stepped back from this stranger, this traitor sitting near her. But for some inexplicable reason, she couldn't attack him or run away, because even now all she could see was the face of the man she married. She couldn't do anything but listen as he told her everything about his past, how he ended up here, how he played their entire nation to achieve his goals and fulfill his mission. As she learned more and more, she felt sicker than she ever had and vomited her dinner, even as he made no move to stop her or be repulsed by it. However, it also explained quite a lot of mysteries that she couldn't understand earlier. Why he pushed Lord Genjutsu to wage war on Kumogakure, why the alliance with the Land of Fire and its allies, why the Land of Lightning was crushed so mercilessly, how Kiri got its hands on winged device technology which only the Spartans of Yuza had in the past, that Uzumaki mercenary woman who was his first love and a fellow Spartan survivor, why he had insisted for Tobarama to meet their children, and so much more. Do you have any idea what you have done? To me? My clan and father? My children! She yelled in absolute rage. He didn't flinch or back away when his wife charged forward and gave him one of the hardest punches of his life that sent him crashing to the floor. She didn't relent and continued attacking him furiously, even as tears continued falling from her eyes in an unending rain. Why? 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 She kept crying that single question over and over again until she ran out of strength and looked at his badly bruised face. Monster, do you have any humanity in you at all? You play the bad guy next. Hanzo Uzumaki's words echoed through his heart once again as he looked into his wife's broken gaze. Just as that man had taken everything from him, he too had taken everything from the woman in front of him. An endless cycle. If you want to save your family and everyone you care about, keep walking forward in this hell. It will be a painful journey, but you must see it through. Fight for their freedom. Madara's advice made him clench his fists, even as he wanted nothing more than to disappear for putting Mei through something like this. Even so, his reckoning had not arrived. Not yet. Answer me. She screamed at him. You're right. I'm the bad guy. I did betray all of you and did all that you know now, he whispered somberly. Naruto the Great? Maybe that's true. You are this nation's, no, maybe the greatest traitor of humanity. A devil who thinks only about himself, and would destroy everything for their own goals, said Mei disappointedly. Those words cut deeper than any blade, bled his heart more painfully, as in them lay a cold and bitter truth. He steeled himself as he summoned the dark ash-like chakra from his body that grabbed Mei fiercely even as she struggled violently. Removing her from top of him, he sent her crashing on the bed, reducing the worst of the fall even as he got up on his feet. Summoning nature energy, he healed the wounds on his body that she inflicted, knowing the ones to his heart would never heal. Neither would the ones he gave to her own. He could see the clear fear in her eyes now, for she knew the power he was capable of. If needed, he could kill her right now and none would dare question him over it. What are you going to do to me? She asked hesitantly. Nothing, said Naruto honestly. Mei barely managed to catch the scroll he sent her way, and upon opening it, she was left speechless once again. It's too late for me to turn back now. Neither can we have a change in our leadership right before the Kage summit. But that document is my resignation as the fourth Mizukage, as well as the admission of my crimes. I take full responsibility for all of it, even if I never really did anything to truly harm Kirigakure despite being a spy, said the fourth Mizukage. Zabuza was right. We all should have trusted him. But we were so blind, and so are you if you think your actions help this nation and everyone you say you care about. She retorted angrily. She stepped back nervously when he marched towards her and looked at her with his cold red eyes. Even if you all knew, do you truly think you can take me down? I killed a tailed beast when you all were barely learning to not shit yourselves in a fight. I have been in more battles than all of you combined have been alive. I can kill any of you easily if you get in my way, warned Naruto mercilessly. Mei looked away, unable to meet those eyes that she had once loved so dearly. It had all been a lie all along. The man she and every one of her countrymen thought they knew never existed in reality. But as loath as she was to admit, He was the strongest shinobi of their nation and a brilliant military commander. He had used Kiri for his own ambition, but in doing so had also made it a power that the entire world respected and feared. He had changed all of their destinies. Why did you tell me all of this? Why now? She asked tiredly. To protect you and our children. The anger within her heart flared even more upon hearing that confession. Yet another feeling also arose within Mei when she looked at his heartbroken gaze. In this cruel world of shinobi, the longer you live, the worse you end up becoming. If I knew it would come to this, I would have preferred to die a long time ago. I know my sins, Mei. More than anyone else, when the time comes, I am prepared to face my judgment. But I won't drag you, our children, or anyone from this nation in that path. It's the least I can do to atone. Even though it will never be enough, he confessed sincerely. You're right. Your sins are unforgivable, and you deserve whatever hell awaits you. Get out, replied Mei icily. He nodded stoically even as his eyes bore into her very soul. Keep your silence until the right time. For your own sake and the children, he said coldly, earning a murderous glare from his wife. Don't pretend to care about this family monster. I will protect my children from your sins, hissed Mei bitterly. You're a good mother. The children are lucky to have you, he whispered thankfully, a gentle look arriving in his eyes which made her heart break even worse. Just go, she whispered tearfully, and he did in a flash as she broke down completely for the life she had just lost. Naruto sat on top of one of his favorite mountains observing the Mist Village in all its glory at night, even as its citizens celebrated their victory alongside their shinobi who were finally home. The fact that this place was also where Mei had proposed to marry him was something he was willing to blame on his need for nostalgia. His tears had long since dried up, yet the pain in his heart burned like a raging inferno swallowing his very soul. He had known the price he would have to pay for achieving his goals and restoring the family he had lost back to life, but it was still heartbreaking. Even so, he had no choice. Madara had held up his end of the bargain truly, and he was not one to break to his own word. It was all he had left when he had lost everything. You've grown into quite a handsome man. He paled upon hearing a voice he had nearly forgotten and had never expected to hear again. Hesitantly, he looked back to see the woman who had given him life looking at him with a tearful smile. Mother. Inoue Namikaze looked exactly as the way he remembered, unblemished, fair-skinned with long golden locks flowing freely in the air. Her kind blue eyes held the same warmth and love that he had missed for so long. Just seeing her alive and standing before him made the pain he was enduring and would continue to worth it. How are you here? I left you and Yahiko and Yuzu with Nagato, he asked hesitantly, even as he got up on his feet and was soon embraced in a fierce hug as she sobbed in joy. He returned the gesture wholeheartedly, for once thankful to be loved unconditionally. A Hiroshin mark never disappears, but you already know that, my son, said Inoue calmly. He looked at his right arm to see the very same mark becoming active as if to emphasize her point. She had marked him with it during the first great ninja war alongside Nagato in order to come to their aid instantly if they got in trouble. I see, you look tired, said Inoue sympathetically, even as she caressed his cheek, which made him smile. Sometimes I feel this is all a long dream. That if I just wake up I'll find myself back in our home alongside the rest of our family, he whispered reluctantly. Nagato told me everything. What you went through in this hell, how far you went for us all. I honestly don't know what to say, Minato. I lost that right the moment I left my boys alone in this miserable world, said Ino miserably, as tears arrived in her eyes once again. You died to save us on that battlefield. That sacrifice saved our lives and gave Yuzu another day to fight, replied her son compassionately. I still can't forgive myself for all that my boys endured. Now we have another chance thanks to you. Let's just run away from all of this. Yahiko, me, Nagato, I heard about a girl Kushina who loves you dearly and your children. Let's just go to a quiet place and live the rest of our lives in peace and happiness. We all deserve that, she pleaded with him. Inoue looked into her son's eyes and saw clearly that a part of him wanted exactly what she was proposing. But another, more stronger part of him wanted something else. If I don't stop this cycle, it will only happen again someday, mother. With more grave consequences. Besides, I gave Madara my word that I shall help him achieve this dream that I now believe in too. He kept his promise, brought all my family and friends back to life. For that alone, I would dedicate my heart to our cause, said Naruto sincerely, and take on the entire shinobi world? Just the two of you. I don't doubt the power the two of you hold, but against that kind of opposition. Inoue paused instantly when she saw a knowing glance present in her elder son's eyes alongside a small smile. We'll put an end to this conflict-ridden world. As descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, heirs to the Uchiha and Senju bloodline, it is within our power to make a difference. Even if it means we have to fight against the entire world to save it from its own sins. The irony of that isn't lost on either of us, said Naruto with a faint chuckle. Only death awaits you on this path, Minato. That and the hatred of this entire shinobi world, for they will not accept your wishes, warned Inoue with a heavy heart. She watched as her son placed her hands gently upon her shoulders and gave her a comforting smile. If that is to be my fate, so be it. It shall be the price of my sins. If I don't do this, then I would never be able to live with myself for not doing anything to create a safer and peaceful world for my children. Forget about me, mother. The son you knew died a long time ago. All that remains is a man who desires change no matter the cost. I shall keep moving forward until I achieve my goal. So it's best if you free yourself of me, requested Naruto gently. Is that why you are pushing everyone away? Your family and friends? Your wife and children? Me? Asked Inoue furiously. I am finally free. This is a path I chose for myself. Let me go, mother, whispered Naruto, as he clenched his right fist and thumped it over his heart. He watched heavy tears fall from his mother's eyes as she recognized the Spartan salute he was offering. Once she had seen her younger son and his comrades back in Yuza performing quite a lot. She looked at this person in front of her truly and for the first time recognized that while he had the face of her son but was a completely different person in reality. The child she had given birth to and loved dearly, the boy who had sought freedom for his island nation and justice for his loved ones, was gone. The only thing that remained was a determined man with a vision of his own. A faint smile arrived on the Mizukage's lips when his mother returned the salute he had offered and overcame her grief to look at him with the respect she would offer to a fellow shinobi whom she acknowledged. He was further surprised when she moved the clenched fist placed upon her heart right upon his own, and this time she could not hold back her tears. Devote your heart fully to this future that you wish to create. Those that can't sacrifice anything could never bring true change. I believe you can achieve your dream, and no matter what happens I will love you regardless, whispered Inoue as she came closer to offer him a parting kiss on his forehead. Take care of Nagato and Yahiko for me, replied Naruto with a smile, even as he fought his hardest to stem the tears that wanted to escape from his moistening eyes. I will, promise Inoue, which made her son laugh as well. Thank you, mother. Few days later, Naruto looked at the members of the 7 ninja swordsmen assembled within his office. In the corner of the room stood his wife, who had not spoken a word to him ever since his confession. The only solace was the fact that she had not revealed his true identity to the people yet, not that she could do so openly without jeopardizing her clan and their children's lives. But it was clear whatever feelings she had for him had died completely. It was necessary for what was to come. That Mizukage is mad if he thinks we'll allow him to host the world's first all-Kage summit in his village, said Amiri angrily, as she pointed at the official scroll which they had received from the said Kage post extensive negotiations with Konoha and every other shinobi nation of the world, big or small. He's the loser, agreed Jinpachi. Lord Fourth, I sense you are not too against this proposal, said Kisame suspiciously, earning a nod from the blonde Kage. Let them play their little theatrics. In doing so, they are playing exactly into my plan. He watched contently as nearly everyone looked at him with confusion evident upon their faces. All except for Kisame, who stared at him for a long moment before the man's eyes widened in shock. So you figured it out? Kisame commented the Mizukage with a smirk. What? Asked nearly everyone in unison, as they turned towards the sole swordsman who had, as per their Kage's statement, despite having fought alongside you for so long, we couldn't figure it out. We truly sometimes forget just who you are, Lord Fourth, said Kisame with a cunning smile. What do you mean? Asked Mangetsu curiously. The only reason we didn't continue the Second Great Ninja War so far was because marching towards Iwagakure and its lands would be a brutal and bloody campaign. More than that, other nations, including our allies, are wishing for peace. Kiri would have stood it out as a threat against that to other nations had we continued our long march before negotiating for a favorable peace at least once, explained Kisame patiently. Since when do we care what the others think? If the situation was reversed, do you think they would have given a damn about us? Asked Jinpachi disappointedly. Appearances matter, Jinpachi. Deception is a key part of warfare. Many of our victories were because of that. The enemy, in their effort to showcase their might, has invited us directly into their home, thinking we don't have the balls to do anything there with the entire world present, and will have to accept whatever he tells us in his own stronghold, said Kisame, earning a nod from the blonde Kage. Isn't that dangerous for us and a black mark against our fearsome reputation that we are going there instead of them coming to us? Asked Haku curiously. Not if they refuse to accept our terms for a new world order. Should they refuse and stand in our way, then our legions would crush them alongside the leadership of every other nation in one swift strike, answered Kisame, How do you plan to march our entire army to Iwagakure itself without anyone noticing? Mangetsu's question was left incomplete when Zabuza realized its answer and pointed at the Kage sitting in front of them with a cold smile upon his lips. Lord Fourth and his Hirishin. He is the key to this mad strategy, whispered Zabuza in disbelief. May watched how swiftly the other swordsmen were surprised upon learning just what their leader had planned and how their opinions changed swiftly as they all smiled in appreciation, even Zabuza. But she couldn't, for now she knew what kind of a man lurked behind that brilliant military commander. The other nations thought they knew him, so did Kirigakure and its shinobi. At one point she had felt the same, but now she didn't anymore. The Kage summit, this possible military strike, the Otsutsuki's secret he was planning to reveal. It was all a smokescreen for his true intentions. She listened in silence as he explained their military strategy for the next hour to his trusted generals, the ones who will be executing his plan and lead Kirigakure's legions and navy into this daring, this suicidal mission. Yet even in that madness she could still see a glimmer of hope, for his plan was truly well thought out. Anyone else wouldn't be able to execute this strategy. But Naruto Namikaze was unique, and had been preparing for this moment for a very long time. If Iwa and Konoha alongside the other smaller nations don't accept our concerns or wishes, then we must be prepared to crush them. It means going to war against the two strongest nations, maybe even the entire world if the smaller nations join them. Are you prepared for that kind of war? For it will be unlike anything we have ever seen, warned Naruto. He got up from his seat and walked amongst his comrades to look into their eyes with absolute conviction in his own eyes. Ask yourself, are you truly prepared to give your heart and soul for humanity and this nation? To the bitter end? Anything less and we shall lose, for when the world shall crash down upon us with its entire might, our shinobi will look to you for guidance in that dire hour. You must be the light that guides them through that darkness, no matter what, explained the Mizukage seriously. I am prepared for that. The 7 ninja swordsmen looked at their Kage as he made that pledge, and most were surprised with the unwavering determination in his eyes. This was a man willing to walk into hell with a smile and face the worst nightmares that awaited them bravely. Mei's anger simmered down a little when she saw him clench his right hand and thump it over his chest. The Spartan salute. Now that she knew his past, she could see how important this was to him. It was a part of who he truly was, something which she could not forget or forgive. Give your heart for the future of humanity. His comrades returned the salute with firm nods before exiting his office to think about what their Kage had just proposed, leaving him alone with his wife, who was staring at him with an unreadable expression. What? He asked. You're a true deceiver. Even the devil could not convince every person to sell their souls. But you could, and maybe that's why the Mizukage chose you, said Mei sarcastically. Mei, you're so broken from inside that to maintain your sanity you actually convinced yourself to start caring about the very people you were sent to spy upon. You think you care about them. No, you actually believe it to be true even as you lead them to their doom. That is your true crime, Naruto said Mei angrily. And what are you going to do about it? He challenged coldly with an icy glare. You'll know the answer soon enough. She left with those scathing words, and he was not surprised when moments later one of the white Setsu clones emerged from the wall in his office. Should we take care of her? He asked casually. No need. She's doing what I expected her to do. It doesn't affect our plan. One way or another, we shall achieve Madara's dream. We shall unite humanity and bring an end to these senseless wars forever, promised Naruto. Madara thinks you're being too hasty by revealing what you have to Mei so far. Just because she's your wife doesn't erase the fact that she is a Jinchuriki, and we need the beast inside of her. Don't forget that, warned Zetsu, earning a furious glare in return from the Kage. Don't shoot the messenger, General. Then get out of my sight before I burn you alive. The clone fled swiftly the way he had arrived, leaving the 4th Mizukage to sigh tiredly as he walked back towards his desk and sat back in his chair. 2 weeks. He would be meeting every Kage and head of state from every corner of the world. All of humanity will be gathered together in one place in several years. He looked at his hands and was surprised to see they were shaking terribly. For once he allowed himself this small luxury as he contemplated the sheer scope of what he was about to execute in 14 days. Either a new era of genuine cooperation in the shinobi world or a conflict unlike anything this world had ever seen to save the soul of humanity itself. He would either be the creator or the destroyer. The sheer weight of either consequence made him tremble badly as he wiped the sweat from his forehead with his shaky hands. His eyes then landed upon a corner of his desk where there was a picture of him and Mei holding their twin children with cheerful smiles upon their faces. A soothing sense of calm washed over his troubled heart as he remembered what he was truly fighting for. He gently grabbed the picture and caressed his thumb over it even as a lone tear fell from his eyes. It's too late to have regrets or turn back, so I'll keep on moving forward. His eyes turned blood red as he got up from his seat and marched ahead to meet his destiny.